Chapter 1438. Towards this answer, Tianyan was not surprised at all. If it was so easy to recruit, Venerable Feng Qiu would not be a rogue cultivator. I wonder what the conditions are for you to join? Tianyan asked with narrowed eyes. He would definitely not give up. At least he would ask what the conditions were for her to join. After all, if such a god joined, there would be no need to mention the benefits to the Three Realms god domain. Whether it was reputation or other aspects, there would be a huge increase. No, I have already decided to roam the various god domains. I have no place to stay. I do not plan to join any faction. If I just stay in a faction, I will not be able to save the innocents affected by the war. Venerable Feng Qiu shook her head and spoke her thoughts very simply. As expected, roaming the various god domains, saving the innocents, saving all living beings. If she joined any other faction, she would definitely not be able to do this. She would be confined to a single god domain. How could she move around freely? If she did not stay in a god domain, what was the difference from not joining at all? Tianyan flicked his finger and smiled. This is very simple. I can help you fulfill this wish. As long as you join my faction, you will succeed. Dao friend can help me fulfill my wish? Venerable Feng Qiu frowned. She did not believe Tianyan's words. Her wish was to save the people of the world. How could it be fulfilled? Unless there was no war, and the world was united, then there might be a chance. That's right, it's actually very simple. I will rule the 4th and 5th god domains. Wouldn't that be enough? Tianyan smiled and said, boasting. You can rule the 4th and 5th god domains? According to that, you have to become a god emperor. Can you become a god emperor? The girl at the side felt that Tianyan was boasting, even though he had saved her master. But to be able to save people, did that mean he could become a god emperor? She originally had a good impression of him, but after this boasting, it was all gone. It was not scary to not have power. What was scary was bragging too much. Venerable Feng Qiu was the same. These words were too exaggerated. How many years had it been since a god emperor had appeared? It had been tens of thousands of years since the last time it had appeared, and no one dared to say that they had become a god emperor. In particular, Tianyan was only a god monarch. He was only one word away from being a god emperor. In terms of ability, the difference was like heaven and earth. Yes, I think I can become a god emperor. Tianyan rubbed his chin. That was exactly what he meant. He believed that he would definitely be able to break through to the god emperor realm. Even though it would be a little difficult, there was still a chance. As long as it met the requirements for leveling up, there would be no problem. As for experience, that was easy to deal with. Bragging again. You are only a god monarch. Don't tell me you think that the next level after god monarch is god emperor? The girl's eyes were filled with disdain. She felt that Tianyan was bragging too much. I understand this logic. It is very difficult for a god emperor to break through, but it is not difficult for me. Of course, it doesn't matter if you believe me or not. As long as you join me and assist me, when I break through to the god emperor stage, nothing will be a problem. Tianyan spoke with confidence. He was just that confident. Fellow Taoist, if you want to convince others, your cultivation level is too low. It is too hard to convince others. Feng Qiuzun shook her head. If it was a upper heavenly god or a middle heavenly god who said this, she might believe it. A god monarch boasted shamelessly in front of her, saying that he could break through to the god emperor stage. She had to admit that this joke was not funny at all. That's right. You are really bragging too much. Tell us when you break through to the heavenly god level. The girl's face was filled with disdain. She couldn't wait for Tianyan to leave. Feng Qiuzun was still fine. Even though her impression of Tianyan was greatly reduced, she was not angry. She still maintained her calm expression. Looks like there is nothing to talk about. If you have any ideas in the future, come to the god domain of the 3 realms. Tianyan shrugged. God domain of the 3 realms? Never heard of it. They had never heard of it. My reputation has not been established yet. You will know in the future. Tianyan was not depressed. He had just arrived. It would be strange if they knew. When he had some achievements, he would be able to spread the reputation of the god domain of the 3 realms. But for now, it was better to stay there and cultivate. 1,000 years later, he would definitely be able to make a name for himself. Humph, we don't need to know. Master, this person is too boastful. There is no need to care about him. The girl was extremely dissatisfied. If he had spoken sincerely, they would not have said anything. But from the start until now, he was full of nonsense. It made her feel very unhappy. Xiao Yuan apologized to fellow Taoist. Feng Qiuzun frowned as she complained. But Xiao Yuan saw Feng Qiuzun's stern gaze. She could only bow to Yi Tianyin and say, "I'm sorry. I was just speaking nonsense. I hope you do not mind." No matter what Yi Tianyin said, he was Feng Qiuzun's savior. No matter how he boasted, he was still her savior. Feng Qiuzun naturally had to control her subordinates. No matter how wrong they could not speak like that. Yi Tianyin waved his hands. He was already used to such situations. They did not understand him. It was not strange for them to have such thoughts. Forget it. Then I'll change to another request. Yi Tianyin did not want to speak anymore. He had already said so much. The other party had chosen to reject him. There was nothing he could do. I only want Feng Qiuzun to send a portion of the light core's energy over. Let me absorb it. His initial goal was to absorb the light core's energy. These solicitations were just incidental. He just happened to feel that it was suitable. Who knew that he would be rejected? He could only give up temporarily. Absorb my light core's energy. Feng Qiuzun thought for a moment. In the end, she nodded. All right. We can begin now. Master, but your injuries. Xiao Yuan was slightly agitated. She did not want to see her master's injuries worsen. It's fine. This does not hinder me. After all, fellow Taoists saved me. Sending some light core's energy is not a problem. Feng Qiuzun shook her head. Repaying kindness had always been her principle. How could she refuse? It's just injuries. Send me the light core's energy. I'll help you heal it later. Yi Tianyin sat down and gestured for Feng Qiuzun to begin. Feng Qiuzun did not ask further. She immediately started to send light attribute energy to Yi Tianyin. Very quickly, it entered his body. Chapter 1439. Under the effects of the voodoo wood divine set, the healing speed increased exponentially, greatly increasing Feng Qiuzun's recovery speed. This effect stunned Feng Qiuzun. She had never seen such a shocking healing effect, including Xiao Yuan. She had never felt such a shocking healing ability. Actually, the effect could be even higher. It was just that Feng Qiuzun's cultivation was too high, causing the effect to be greatly weakened, but it was at least a few dozen times stronger. This was already quite shocking. At least it had completely scared them, letting them know that Yi Tianyin was not someone without abilities. Such a powerful healing ability, this Dao friend. How did you do it? Feng Qiuzun was a little excited. This ability was very suitable for her. The light attribute could not achieve a healing effect, although it could purify everything. It could not heal any injuries. So if they met any injured commoners, the healing would be effective, but it would not be as effective as Yi Tianyin. Don't stop, continue to send the light core energy. Yi Tianyin raised his hand to point at her, indicating that even if she was shocked, she should not stop. He had to keep absorbing and refining. Talking would not hinder the absorption, he could still be distracted. The stronger the cultivation, the more things he could do at the same time, and there would not be any problems. Sorry. Feng Qiuzun smiled apologetically, continuing to send the light core energy to Yi Tianyin. At the same time she said anxiously, Dao friend, I wonder if you can tell me how you did it? If possible, I can use other things to exchange for it, for example Empyrean level treasures. These are all not a problem, as long as you can tell me how you did it. You want to know? Yi Tianyin smiled. Seeing her so interested, he could not help but have some plans. Yes, if we can obtain this ability, we'll be able to heal the injured people much faster. Feng Qiuzun spoke her thoughts. It had to be said that this idea was truly worthy of respect. Feng Qiuzun was wholeheartedly thinking of everyone, wanting to save those in trouble. It was truly admirable. Yi Tianyin smiled evilly. What Empyrean level treasures? These are all meaningless to me. As long as you join my force, don't mention these martial arts. You can choose any martial arts you want. I guarantee that you will be satisfied. This won't do. Feng Qiuzun's eyes dimmed. She did not expect that after going around and around, she would still be targeted at recruiting her. Although she was very tempted, it was too much of a loss for her to be unable to move freely. If that was the case, there was no point in coming. What? Are you worried that I will lock down your freedom? Actually, I won't restrict your freedom. You can go wherever you want. You just have to announce to the outside that you've joined my force. Yi Tianyan smiled and said, "What do you think? Is this a good deal?" "Sir, you've gone too far. Do you think we don't know what you're planning?" They just wanted to use their master's reputation to attract more experts to join them. Master's reputation is very widespread in this region. A single call and hundreds will respond. Little Yuan said angrily. She could see through Yi Tianyan's thoughts at a glance. Because many people had the same thoughts when they tried to recruit Feng Qiuzun. That was why she said that. Yi Tianyan glanced at her and said indifferently, "Friend, you're not young anymore since you've cultivated to the divine monarch realm. When did I say that I didn't have such thoughts? You want to obtain some benefits, and you don't need to pay any price? In other words, if you have the ability, give me your strongest martial arts, and then I won't help you do anything?" There were no free benefits, there was definitely something hidden in it. Yi Tianyan had never denied this. Little Yuan's face flushed red. She looked small and cute, looking like she was 8 or 9 years old, but in reality, she was thousands of years old. Her body had been like this since she was young, and had never changed. Therefore, she looked like a child, but in reality, she was considered young to be someone else's grandmother. "I'm giving you freedom now, just in name. If there's anything, I'll help. Isn't that enough?" Yi Tianyan smiled indifferently and said, "It's better than those who restrict your freedom and want to use your reputation to recruit more disciples." Feng Qiuzun was silent for a while, and finally chose to shake her head. "I'm very sorry, I still don't plan to join any faction." In the end, she still chose to refuse, and did not agree to Yi Tianyan's request. "Alright, if you change your mind one day, tell me." Yi Tianyan did not force anything. Since she had rejected him so many times, he would not say any more. Feng Qiuzun did not say much. Whether she would really come to find him, he did not know. Following that, they focused on absorbing the light core's energy. Yi Tianyan continued to absorb, and very quickly, a light core was formed in his body. As it increased bit by bit, the light core in Feng Qiuzun's body started to be consumed, but as long as he cultivated for a period of time, he would be able to recover. As time passed, a light planet started to form in Yi Tianyan's body. There were circles of holy light that spread out, making him feel rather comfortable, as though he was bathing in sunlight. Is this the piece of the light attribute? Yi Tianyan felt rather satisfied. To be able to obtain such a benefit, he did not save a life for nothing. The key was that Feng Qiuzun was very easy to talk to. If it was a slightly irritable upper-level heavenly venerables, they would kill a divine monarch with one slap, and would be too lazy to care. After condensing for a period of time, Yi Tianyan stopped absorbing the light core's energy. He already had enough, and did not need to absorb so much. Feng Qiuzun also closed her eyes to recover. Her consumption was not low. About half of the core's energy had been sent out. How could her consumption not be great? But Yi Tianyan had saved her life, and asking for such a small reward would not be too high. But she was puzzled. Why would Yi Tianyan choose her energy? She could not sense that Yi Tianyan had a light attribute physique. But since the other party had made such a request, she naturally would not say anything more. As long as she was not roped in to join the faction, everything else was fine. After Yi Tianyan closed his eyes to cultivate for a period of time, he finally consolidated the light planet in his body, like a ball of light. It circulated in his body, looking rather beautiful. Finally, I've completely consolidated them. Now, it's equivalent to having 7 planets. Chapter 1440. Yi Tianyan didn't know how many planets he would need to break through. Anyway, forming 1 or 2 more was good. Mainly it was within his control. Otherwise he wouldn't form planets randomly. It's about time, it's time to leave. Yi Tianyan stood up, Feng Qiuzun and the others looked over. Dao friend, are you leaving? Feng Qiuzun asked. Almost. Speaking of which, why do you want to form a thunder planet? With your physique, it's not easy. In my opinion, you want to break through to a higher level? Yi Tianyan said after thinking. Feng Qiuzun was silent for a while, not answering Yi Tianyan. Clearly there was something she couldn't say. Yi Tianyan didn't force anything, he smiled. Then I'll leave now. If Feng Qiuzun changes her mind, remember to find me in the Three Realms Divine Domain. Of course, you don't know where the Three Realms Divine Domain is. You can find me in the Vast Divine Sect. Vast Divine Sect? They were startled. Perhaps they hadn't heard of the Three Realms Divine Domain, but the Vast Divine Sect had definitely heard of it. Yes, I am a disciple of the Vast Divine Sect. If you have any problems, find me there. Yi Tianyan said goodbye and left. Just as he left, he saw Heavenly Venerable Li wandering outside. When he saw Yi Tianyan, he quickly flew down and said, Little junior brother, I didn't expect you to be here. I thought you went out. Senior brother, what's wrong? Is it time for us to leave? Yi Tianyan said as he calculated the time. Yes, Master told me to find you. It's time to leave. Heavenly Venerable Li smiled. All right, let's leave now. Yi Tianyan nodded to Heavenly Venerable Li. Just as he was about to leave, Heavenly Venerable Li saw Feng Qiuzun in the room. So it's Feng Qiuzun. I didn't expect to see you here. The outside world says you went to another divine domain. I didn't expect you to stay here. Heavenly Venerable Li cupped his hands respectfully. Greetings, Heavenly Venerable Li. Feng Qiuzun smiled faintly. I am just resting here for a while. I do not intend to stay here permanently. So that's how it is. Then we'll take our leave. We still have important matters to attend to. After exchanging greetings, Heavenly Lord Li Tian did not say much to Feng Qiuzun, and quickly left the area with Yi Tianyan. He was not very familiar with Feng Qiuzun. They had only met a few times and naturally did not talk much. Feng Qiuzun looked at the backs of Yi Tianyan and the rest as they left and shook his head. He turned and said to Xiao Yuan, It's about time to leave. This method won't work. We have to find another way. Naturally, she would not change her mind just because Yi Tianyan was a disciple of the Vastness God sect. She still had no intention of joining any force. She wanted more, or in other ways. Yes, Master. Little Yuan quickly helped to pack up and prepared to leave this area. They treated Yi Tianyan's words as a joke. What God Emperor? What ruling this God domain? It was all a bunch of bullshit. When Heavenly Venerable Li brought Yi Tianyan back, he asked curiously, Why are you with Feng Qiuzun? Feng Qiuzun often disappears. I was just lucky. I just happened to help her. Yi Tianyan smiled. That's a good thing. You helped her. She will definitely repay you. Heavenly Venerable Li Tian smiled. Feng Qiuzun has a good reputation in this area. No one dares to do anything to her. It can be said that with one call, hundreds will respond. Many people joke that Feng Qiuzun is equivalent to a few God domain forces. As long as she is willing, she can easily start a God domain war. Her rallying power is really strong. Yi Tianyan nodded. If she could often do good and help many people, she would indeed have this ability. Of course, speaking of which, what did you talk about with her inside? Heavenly Venerable Li gossiped. Nothing much. I just wanted her to join our God domain of the Three Realms. Yi Tianyan shrugged. But she didn't want to join. She said she wanted to travel to various God domains. Very quickly, they returned to the vast God sect. The moment they returned, the great Devas brought them directly to the Heaven Cultivation God domain. There was no delay at all. Along with them were all his disciples. All of them headed to the Heaven Cultivation God domain. When we reach the Heaven Cultivation God domain, listen to my instructions, don't be impulsive, and don't cause trouble. The great Devas said solemnly. Yes. They all nodded. The great Devas had left the Heaven Cultivation God domain. Something would definitely happen when they returned, so they had to be prepared. Under the great Devas's lead, they passed through one God domain after another, and finally arrived at the edge of the Heaven Cultivation God domain. This place was no different from other God domains. It was surrounded by layers of barriers, and one could only enter through the passage. After the great Devas put away the spirit ship, they arrived in front of the passage, and immediately a guard intercepted them. Just as he was about to ask the other party's purpose, he saw that the person who came was the great Devas. He was startled at first, and then respectfully said, "Greetings, sir. May I know what brings you here, sir?" They had long since forgotten that Empyrean Vastness was the fourth elder of this place. How many years had passed, and it was unknown how many batches of guards had been replaced. Only those of the older generation would know who Empyrean Vastness was. "I want to see the Heaven Cultivation God Domain Lord," the great Devas said calmly. "Okay, please wait a moment, we will go and inform him now." They could sense that the great Devas's cultivation was very strong, so they would naturally be polite, otherwise they wouldn't pay any attention to him. Just as the guard was about to go and inform the Heaven Cultivation God, a familiar figure appeared at the side. After the guard saw the figure, he respectfully said, "Greetings, third elder." "There's no need to inform, I will bring these people in," Heavenly God Coldflame said. "Yes, third elder." The guards naturally didn't say anything. Originally, they only needed to consult the elders. There was no need to go to the Domain Lord. Looking at the people brought by the great Devas, Heavenly God Coldflame turned and walked inside, not saying anything. The great Devas followed him in, and Tianyun and the others nodded at each other, then followed in. After entering, the layout inside was very good. For example, there were many large arrays set up, basically sealing off all areas. If there were intruders, they could immediately be activated to suppress the intruders. Overall, this place was much stronger than the Three Realms God Domain. Tianyun didn't feel depressed because of this. After all, he had just ascended. Jumping from grade 1 to grade 4 God Domain was already very amazing. It was impossible to catch up to these forces that had existed for tens of thousands of years in a short time. I wonder what the situation will be. Chapter 1441. Lung Yen led the way, and the great Devas followed behind with Tianyun and the others. At the same time, he observed the surroundings and sighed. "You haven't been back for a long time," Lung Yen said in a deep voice. "Yes, it's really been a long time. This is the first time I've come back." The great Devas sighed deeply. How could he not miss this place where he was born? "Well, this time, either you prove it to everyone, or you come back obediently. I hope you can fulfill your promise all these years." Lung Yan's tone was still cold and emotionless. "Yes, third brother." The great Devas suddenly changed the way he addressed Lung Yan, and called him third brother. Lung Yan nodded and didn't say anything. His expression was still cold, but his eyes were full of worry. How could he not worry about his younger brother when he was addressed as third brother? He seemed cold and detached, but that was just how his personality was. It wouldn't change. It was just that his words revealed his concern for her. When they first met, he didn't attack. He just came to persuade them as usual. Now he didn't say anything sarcastic. Instead, he was full of concern. Tianyun and the others looked at each other in the back. It seems that the vast heavenly deity here still has support for Tianyun. Under the guidance of Lung Yen, they soon arrived at one of the planets. There was a luxurious hall inside. It was so large that it covered the entire planet. It seemed to be quite extravagant. After they flew down, Tianyun saw a few big words engraved on the side of the towering boulder. Cultivation Temple. These words were majestic, and the pressure of a heavenly god was released from the words. It pressed down on them, making them feel a sense of oppression. These words were written with the power of a heavenly god. Just looking at them made them feel a little pressure, as if a heavenly god was standing in front of them. After they entered, there were many disciples inside. Each of them was at least at the level of the Lord of Heaven, and they looked very young. Their appearance immediately attracted everyone's attention, mainly because their faces were too unfamiliar. Not everyone can enter the cultivation temple. Only super geniuses whose cultivation has reached the level of the Lord of Heaven can enter here to cultivate. The cultivation shrine was divided into many areas. Even heavenly venerates could cultivate here. This was enough to show how shocking the resources of the cultivation shrine were. This point could actually be felt from the underground cores. The cultivation temple was embedded with several fifth-grade cores, arranged in different areas. In fact, it was nothing new for a planet to have several cores. As long as he forcefully stuffed it in, he would be able to fit it in. The problem was that the energies could not clash. If they did, it would cause the planet to explode. The distribution of the planets here was very reasonable. At the same time, they were isolated, so naturally there would not be any problems. However, as far as Eteonian was concerned, this place was still a far cry from the core layout of the three realms. Hey, who are they? Have they just been recruited? There are quite a number of heavenly venerables and god lords. What are they doing here? I'm not sure. The third elder is personally leading the way. They must have some status. These disciples whispered to each other. None of them knew the great Devis. They had never seen them before. After passing through this temple, they arrived at the next temple. There were god lord disciples walking around. They were obviously god lord disciples who were allocated to cultivate in this area. This meant that the next area was where the heavenly venerables stayed. They belonged to the elite disciples of the heaven cultivation god realm. They were also the pillars of the heaven cultivation god realm. When they arrived at the heavenly venerables area, someone immediately recognized the great Devis. It's the fourth elder. He's finally back. The fourth elder? We have the fourth elder here? Of course there's the fourth elder. That vast god is our fourth elder. Back then, he chose to leave the heavenly cultivation divine realm, in order to prove that ordinary talent can still crush geniuses. What a joke. Are you talking about those disciples who have been working hard but have no achievements? Those are simply a waste of resources. There's no point in nurturing them. That's right. Those guys have worked so hard for so long only to increase their cultivation by so little. What's the point? Why bother allocating resources to them? Just let them be eliminated. When they heard the great Devis's idea, they found it very funny. Most of them were disdainful. They felt that it was a joke. An ordinary person could surpass geniuses? If that was the case, what was the point of nurturing geniuses? These guys. Heavenly Venerate Dragon Cry was furious. When he wanted to fight with them, he was immediately held back by Heavenly Venerate Force. He turned his head and saw Heavenly Venerate Force shaking his head at him, indicating that he shouldn't be impulsive. I can't stand it. Master doesn't have such an idea. It's not that we don't nurture geniuses. It's just that ordinary people can't be abandoned. Heavenly Venerate Dragon Cry had a deep understanding. He had ordinary talent, and had spent a lot of time to reach his current level. Although he was a little slow, he believed that his current strength wouldn't lose to any genius middle-level Heavenly Venerate. Aren't we here to prove it now? If they don't understand, that's their problem. Master already said not to get too excited. As the eldest senior brother, Heavenly Venerate Force was still very steady. In fact, he was also very angry. However, once he exploded, he would only implicate his master. He would fight fair and square to prove that his strength wouldn't lose to anyone. Heavenly Venerate Yuqian clenched her fists, her eyes red. She knew how difficult it had been for her to reach this point. Geniuses might be able to get more resources, but could it be that ordinary people couldn't get any? Her talent was ordinary, and she didn't know how long she had worked to reach this level. She was grateful to the great Devis. If not for the great Devis, she wouldn't even know which family she would be a slave to. Everything was because the great Devis had chosen them to stand out. Having ordinary talent wasn't scary. What was scary was not working hard. What the great Devis saw in them was their unwillingness to accept their fate, and their determination to work hard. He would increase their efforts in nurturing them. The others were the same. Perhaps they couldn't become his disciples, but he would at least give them a chance. However, after some achievements, they would run to those big factions and abandon him. Many situations were cruel, but the great Devis was still so persistent. His back was so lonely. Chapter 1442. Those at the Empyrean level had an impression of the great Devis. After all, these were the older generation disciples who had now broken through to the Empyrean level. Actually, at the Divine Lord level, some people had already seen through the great Devis. Back then, The great Devis's reputation was quite resounding here. There were still many who remembered him. It was just that talented people emerged in every generation. Many new disciples emerged like bamboo shoots after the rain. Naturally, they would not recognize the great Devis. It was just that those who knew the great Devis were extremely disdainful of the great Devis's theory, wondering why resources should be allocated to those with average talent. Even if they had to be allocated, it was only a portion. As for other special treatment, don't even think about it. The heaven-cultivating divine realm was like this. Those with average talent were destined to only stay in one area to cultivate. No matter how hard they worked, no matter how good the level they displayed, they would not be given an excellent cultivation environment. For example, those with good talent could stay in the 5th grade core to cultivate. Those with average talent could only stay in the 3rd grade and below core to cultivate. This was the difference. No matter how hard they worked, being able to defeat a portion of geniuses, there was still no chance to turn things around. In the end, the moment their talent was confirmed, there was already no chance to turn things around. They were destined to be like this. Under the circumstances of average talent, they would not be given better resources, let alone soaring and turning things around. It was already pretty good to be able to break through. Forget about those with average talent. Even those with amazing talent, if there were no resources, they would still have to kneel. This was like eating. If they could not even eat their fill, how could they still hope to have strength? The people here spoke as harshly as they could. They might not have scolded the great Devis, but they also did not have the qualifications to scold the great Devis. No matter what, the great Devis was a celestial deity. Who dared to scold him? However, they were dismissive of the great Devis's theory, feeling that it was simply an idiotic idea. If not for the great Devis successfully breaking through to celestial deity, he would definitely be scolded like a dog. Such unpleasant voices. The great Devis's expression was indifferent, ignoring their discussion. These few years, he did not know how many similar words he had heard. We must change the atmosphere here. If this continues, there will definitely be a problem with the heavenly god realm. Etianyan furrowed his brows. Under this polarization, he had to be careful of the resistance from his innate talent. Once they were gathered, it would become a fuse. When it exploded, the heavenly cultivation god realm would probably fall into chaos. After all, if they didn't see eye to eye with each other, it would be nonsense to talk about unity. Perhaps it was for this reason that the great Devis chose to leave and look for a convincing way to improve the cultivation realm. The great Devis had left to cultivate the celestial realm. As the son of the domain lord, how could he not care? Amidst the sounds of discussion, they finally arrived at the main hall at the very front. There were not many people here. It was completely empty. They're already on their way. I hope your performance won't disappoint me. Empyrean god Coldflame stepped to the side and motioned for the great Devis to wait for a while. Moments later, several figures walked in from the side. Their cultivations were all at the upper sky venerable level or above. Only those at the upper sky venerable level had a little right to speak in the heavenly cultivation god realm. Their basic status was similar to that of a deacon, and they could manage many areas. To become an elder, one needed to be at the late-stage upper sky venerable level, or at the celestial god level. At the same time, there were additional promotions. For example, those with outstanding characteristics would be promoted. After they came in, their gazes were focused on the great Devis. Some had complicated gazes, some were full of disdain, and some were gloating. It was undeniable that the great Devis, becoming a celestial god, had put a lot of pressure on them, but that was a different matter. Didn't they still have to come back in the end? No matter how strong they were, they could only be considered one. In particular, they liked to see the original high-spirited the great Devis being ruthlessly suppressed and unable to make a comeback. After all, no one was optimistic about the great Devis. They all felt that his theory was stupid. Increasing strength to nurture those with average talent was simply a waste of resources. They all wanted resources, so why should they share more? Fourth Elder, long time no see. These 5 people are the certified disciples you brought with you? A celestial god leisurely walked over from the side, looking at Etianyan with disdain. Obviously, He looked down on the disciples brought by the great Devis. Second elder, long time no see indeed. They are indeed my disciples. They are enough to prove themselves. The great Devis's tone was sonorous and powerful. He did not show any signs of being at a disadvantage. He would not weaken his prestige. Oh, they do look good. 4 heavenly venerables and 1 divine lord. Only 2 are decent. As for the rest, the second elder sneered and slowly added, not too good. To them, those who were not at the upper sky venerable level could not be considered trash. But when they thought of the words of the great Devis, they felt that they were very weak. Before the great Devis left, he left behind a sentence. That was, after 10,000 years, the disciples he brought back would crush all of your geniuses. No matter what level they were, they would crush them all. If not for these words, it was enough to prove that the great Devis was very strong to be able to bring out so many heavenly venerables. Some even felt that it was not worth it for the great Devis. If these people's talents were ordinary, they could bring out such cultivation. What if they were talented? They might even be at the late sky venerable level, or even about to break through to the heavenly god level. That being said, the great Devis was not a fool. He had seen too many geniuses fall. They could not even break through to the heavenly venerable level. Did they really think that heavenly venerables and heavenly gods were cabbages that could be casually broken through? Is that so? We will know when the time comes. The great Devis did not care about the second elder's sarcasm. He was already prepared for this. I also feel that it's not too good. Another heavenly god walked over from the side and looked at them coldly. He said in a deep voice, I am not too optimistic about this answer scroll. Their cultivation is too weak. I don't know how their real talents are. Moreover, there is one thing that makes us very dissatisfied. We want to accept a new god territory. Why did you refuse? This was a very serious topic. In the end, the great Devis were all people of the heaven cultivating god territory. Whether they were alive or dead, they were people of the heaven cultivating god territory. Although some people said that they were removed from the list, in fact they were never famous. The great Devis only went to fulfill their own ideas. They were stubborn for a while. They did not really break away from the heaven cultivating god territory. The heaven cultivating god territory was so overbearing. If anyone wanted to break away, it was very simple. First, they had to abolish all of their cultivation. Then they could get out. Chapter 1443. The great Devis fiercely retorted. The divine realm of the 3 realms was originally managed by Tianyin. Naturally, it could not be said to be his faction. What a joke. Isn't your own disciple's faction your own? The one who walked out to speak was none other than the great elder. That's your standard, not mine. I've never cared about my disciple's faction. That was built by him personally. If I casually interfere in management, it might break the original rules. The great Devis explained with an indifferent expression. Also, I feel that I still need some face to casually take things from my own disciple. The great elder and the others all had sharp gazes. Such a big fat piece of meat. They really did not want to give up. But they had to admit that the words of the great Devis were really slapping their faces. They had the nerve to take things from their own disciple? Did they still want their old face? Fourth elder, you're actually cursing people. The great elder said angrily. I curse people? Who did I curse? I'm just saying what I think. Don't tell me that you all casually take things from your own disciples. In my opinion, unless it's a tribute from the disciple, you absolutely will not take anything from your own disciple. The great Devis's words had a hidden meaning. Not only did he want to protect the divine realm of the 3 realms, but he also stated his own code of conduct. He didn't say that just to piss them off. When he first came to the divine realm of the 3 realms, he said that he would not interfere in any matters of the divine realm of the 3 realms. Unless Tianyin said to hand over the faction to him to manage, then that was another matter. These words immediately shut their mouths. They did not know what to say. There were many of their own disciples here. When they came in, the rest of the genius disciples also came in from the other temples one after another. It could be said that this hall was filled with people. If they said that their disciples casually took things from them, it would really be a loss of face. In the divine realm, they were very supportive of their disciples going out to establish their own factions. If there was any improvement, wouldn't it be taken over and managed by others at will? How could they casually hand over what they had worked so hard to get? Even their own masters could not force it, right? Because of this, the first elder and the others didn't know what to say. However, they also didn't want to give up on this piece of fat meat. Tianyan smiled faintly at the side. The great Devis was indeed strong. With just one sentence, he had blocked all the words that Tianyan wanted to say. When they were about to say something, the guards at the side hurriedly shouted, "Welcome Region Lord and Region Empress Xiutian." At this moment, everyone's gazes shifted over. Following closely behind, the Region Lord and Region Empress Xiutian slowly walked out from the side of the passageway. Every step they took seemed to merge with the world, and they were filled with the pressure of a superior being. The Great Devis and the Xiutian Domain Lord were indeed somewhat similar. His cultivation base had even reached the level of a mid-level heavenly god. At this level, it was very difficult for him to continue improving. It was indeed shocking that he could still reach the level of a mid-level heavenly god. After becoming a domain, his cultivation was slightly lower, reaching the level of an early-stage lesser celestial god. However, he was still a celestial god. How could the children of two heavenly gods be weak? After they appeared, many disciples immediately knelt on the ground. "Welcome Region Lord and Region Empress Xiutian." A large number of people knelt on one knee. Apart from those with cultivation bases of heavenly venerables and above, everyone else had to kneel. Even those with cultivation bases of heavenly venerables and above had to bow to express their respect. Just when everything was going so smoothly, a sudden shout came from the side. "How dare you? How dare you not kneel in front of the Region Lord?" The person who roared was none other than the second elder. The second elder shouted at Tianyan. Those with cultivation bases of heavenly venerables and below had to kneel. Tianyan's cultivation base was only at the Divine Lord level. Naturally, he had to kneel. "Kneel." Tianyan smiled faintly. "I only kneel in front of my parents and master. Also, I am not a disciple of the Heaven God domain. Why should I kneel?" It was not that he was arrogant and conceited, but this was the norm. If he went out and knelt in front of a heavenly god, would he still have any face left? Others might be afraid, but he was not. "Kneel." The second elder roared angrily. He stretched out his hand and pressed down on Tianyan, wanting to force Tianyan to kneel. When this force was about to press down, the great Devis stood in front of Tianyan and waved his hand, sending this force flying. "My disciple is right. He is not a disciple of the Heaven God domain. There is no need to do this. Besides, I think he has the right to stand." The great Devis knew Tianyan's ability. If he could not stand with this ability, then all the heavenly venerables would have to kneel. Oh, he has the right to stand? That's really arrogant. How can a divine lord have the right to stand? The second elder's face was gloomy. He was definitely not doing things according to the rules. He just did not like the great Devis, so he used this as a pretext to make a fuss. Because he is the new domain master of the God domain, he was able to win the God domain battle. In terms of grade, he is the same as the Heaven God domain, a grade 4 God domain. Logically speaking, let alone kneeling, our statuses are equal. The boundless heavenly deity was truly audacious. He even dared to say such words. However, he was right. A grade 4 God Realms domain master was basically on the same level as the Xiutian domain master. The only difference was in cultivation. That was like heaven and earth. A divine lord is the new domain master? What a joke. Looks like the God domain battle in the other God domains has become so unbearable. The second elder laughed loudly, his tone full of disdain. It is quite unbearable. Dozens of heavenly venerables died in the God domain battle. Many of them died at his hands. Many of them came from the inner God domain. In other words, the heavenly venerables in the inner God domain are also unbearable. The great Devis said lightly. Fourth elder, even if you want to prove yourself, you can't boast like this, right? A divine lord can jump levels and kill heavenly venerables? Even the most monstrous genius on our side can jump levels and kill heavenly venerables without a problem, but it is not that easy. The second elder and the others did not believe it. They felt that the great Devis was boasting. Enough. The Heaven Cultivation Domain Master finally spoke up. He said in a deep voice, "Now is not the time to argue. If you want to deny it, wait until the results are out." The Heaven Cultivation Domain Master and the Domain Empress looked at their son. They did not say anything on the surface, but they were still a little concerned. However, the Heaven Cultivation Domain Master's expression was a little colder. The Domain Empress' eyes were full of love. She was more worried about her son. Chapter 1444. Since the Cultivation Sky Domain Lord had spoken, who would dare to say anything else? The great Devis's words were true, but no matter what, they still had to go through the procedure. They had to take out the oath that they had previously agreed to and let everyone see if it could achieve the effect that the great Devis had mentioned. Good. Now that everyone is here, the fourth elder promised that he would nurture someone who isn't very talented, but can defeat all the geniuses of the heavenly cultivation god realm. We all remember this very clearly. It's not long before the time for the oath is up. Your return means that you have come to a conclusion. You can show it to us now. The great elder stood up. He had the strongest opinion of the great Devis, so he would personally preside over the test. Then the great elder said in a deep voice, "Now let's start the talent test. Every disciple has to pass the talent stone steel here to determine their talent. Let us see the talent of all your disciples first." There was a huge stone steel at the side. It was blank and had nothing on it. This was the talent stone steel. It was Etienne's first time seeing it. He had seen similar steels in the past that could test one's strength. However, it could not completely determine a person's talent. In his opinion, this kind of steel was the most useless and unfair. He would never set up such a steel in the sacred realm of the three realms. If he were to test it, he would basically be dead. He would not care about his potential in the future. It was like being sentenced to death. Nothing would ever change. This kind of thing was really a little scary. He really did not want to try it once he had determined his future. Who's first? The great elder looked over with a burning gaze. "I'll go first." Heavenly Venerately stepped forward first. As the great senior brother, he naturally had to go first. The great Devis nodded and did not say much. There was no problem with him starting first. Then he arrived in front of the talent stone steel in 2 or 3 steps. He reached out and covered it with his hand. Then he poured his strongest power into it. Then, circles of energy continuously flowed into the stone steel. Soon, the stone steel emitted a faint light and began to show the talent levels. First stage, second stage, third stage. It was a rather straightforward data to see. "Master, how did you identify it?" Etienne frowned. How could he determine what grade of talent it was? These are all useless things. There is no basis at all. Many things can't be tested at all. It can only detect a person's spiritual root talent, but this thing is a little vague. The definition is too narrow. It's all empty. The great Devis scoffed at this. "Fourth elder, what you said is tantamount to denying that the testing method of our cultivation god realm has always been wrong." The great elder snorted, expressing his extreme dissatisfaction with the great Devis's words. "That's right. Just relying on this to define it is too vague. There were many things that could not be determined, such as luck, willpower, and various other abilities. It's really meaningless to directly judge a person's future based on this." The great Devis was still denying their methods in front of everyone. What a joke! But it has been proven that we can find countless geniuses with this method. After training, it proves that their abilities are not bad, and most of them can reach the level we want. The great elder immediately retorted, "That's right, but you also rejected many possibilities." The great Devis waved his hand, too lazy to say anything more. "Humph. Possibility? Then let us see how high the possibility is. You said this a long time ago. I didn't expect that after so many years, you are still so stubborn. Then let's see how strong the disciple you chose is." The great elder was extremely disdainful. Soon the talent of Heavenly Venerate Li was determined to be a 6th grade talent. The highest talent was a 10th grade talent, while he was a 6th grade talent, which was in the middle level. 6th grade talent? The great elder laughed when he saw this. His talent is really ordinary. He is only a 6th grade talent, and he can't even enter the Cultivation God Palace. To be qualified to enter the Cultivation God Palace, one must have at least a 7th grade talent. There was no doubt that Heavenly Venerate Li could not enter. Is that so? Then how do you explain the cultivation of an upper Heavenly Venerate? The great Deva said indifferently. As soon as these words came out, their laughter stopped abruptly, as if they had been slapped in the face. The upper Heavenly Venerate level was considered a very high level in the Heaven Cultivation God realm. An existence with a 6th grade talent could surpass most so-called 7th grade talent geniuses. It was really a bit ironic. You must have spent a lot of resources to help him break through to the upper Heavenly Venerate. Oh, as if I alone can compare to the resources of the entire Heaven Cultivation God realm. Since you said that you can spend resources, why don't you spend more? The great Deva sneered and fiercely retorted. The faces of the great elder and the others alternated between green and white. This was really true. It could be described as melodramatic. For some late-stage middle Heavenly Venerates, resources were spent without any leeway to let them break through to the upper Heavenly Venerate level. However, no matter how they spent resources, they still could not break through. Some things really could not be achieved by spending resources. What was needed was perception. Perception was not completely determined by talent. It was affected by various aspects. This is an exception. The great elder waved his hand and said coldly, "Continue to test the next one." All right, continue to test the next one. The great Deva's motioned for Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian to walk forward. Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian came in front of the testing stone tablet and placed her hand on it. Following that, the stone tablet immediately showed the talent grade. 5th grade talent. 5th grade talent. Mid-stage upper Heavenly Venerate. I wonder how it feels? The great Deva smiled slightly. All of them were dumbfounded. They thought that the talent was at least at the 7th grade or 8th grade. Who knew that each talent was lower than the other? Was this really not a problem with the stone tablet? Tianyan laughed at the side. It seemed like the great Devas came to slap their faces this time. And it was a heavy slap. What did it mean that one's cultivation could not rise if one's talent was inferior? Wasn't this proof now? All the elders' faces were ugly. The other geniuses' faces were even uglier. Their talent was so strong, yet they could not beat an existence that was 2 levels weaker than them. Chapter 1445. Celestial Venerable Yu Qian's performance greatly astonished them. They were all deeply shaken, once again subverting their understanding. However, they quickly calmed down. Even so, it didn't prove anything. There were only 2 of them. The examples were truly too few and insignificant. Occasionally, there would be 2 such exceptions, which was not surprising at all. The great Devas knew that they wouldn't admit defeat easily. So he gestured for Heavenly Venerate Dragon Cry to take the test. Very quickly, Heavenly Venerate Dragon Cry's results were out. 5th grade talent. Although Heavenly Venerate Dragon Cry had absorbed things like dragon blood, it didn't mean that his talents would change. Hence, the effects of his talents wouldn't change. Another 5th grade mid-level Heavenly Venerable. They sucked in a breath of cold air. They didn't expect it to be such a weirdo. For them, a 5th grade talent was already considered pretty good if they could cultivate to the Divine Lord level, much less the Heavenly Venerable level. However, Celestial Venerable Dragon Cry once again proved to them that even a 5th grade talent could cultivate to the level of a Celestial Venerable. However, compared to Heavenly Venerable Yu Qian, it was indeed less shocking. Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian's talent was also at the 5th grade level. With this kind of performance, the following performances naturally wouldn't cause too much of a stir. Unless a grade 4 talent appeared and was at the level of an upper Empyrean or middle Empyrean, then it would be even more shocking. He was sent out with Heavenly Venerable Sword C, and his talent was tested to be slightly higher. He reached the 6th grade, which was not high at all. However, he still reached the middle-level Empyrean level. This shocked them once again. For consecutive Empyreans had ordinary talent. The great Devis did not have amazing resources. The power of one person could not compare to the entire god territory. After all, these geniuses were the product of countless ordinary disciples. If it wasn't for those people collecting resources, these geniuses would definitely be useless. Geniuses didn't even need to do missions to earn countless resources. As for those with average talent, they had to painstakingly complete countless missions in order to obtain some resources. He had to admit that this was the cruel reality. It was just that the heavenly cultivation god realm was a bit more extreme. It basically fixed this kind of camp, and it was very easy for the relationship to deteriorate. It should be said that their relationship had deteriorated to the extreme. It was just that it hadn't turned into a conflict. Great Elder, what are the effects of this? The great Devis asked calmly. Great Elder's expression was unsightly. He didn't think that he would be slapped in the face so quickly. However, he still gritted his teeth and said, "The number is still too little. You spent 10,000 years to nurture such a small number of people, and you still have the nerve to say that? If it were a genius, who knows how many of them they could bring out? 10,000 years to be able to nurture 4 Empyreans. This number was a bit too little. Of course, in all fairness, it wasn't a small amount. However, the great elder stubbornly refused to admit this fact no matter what. What a joke. I'm just one person. I don't have any resources. How am I supposed to train so many people? Of course, there will soon be more disciples breaking through to the Empyrean realm, and the number will slowly increase. The great Devis said in a deep voice. Moreover, I have never denied that we should put more effort into nurturing geniuses. I just want to say that those with average talents cannot be abandoned. Don't distort the truth. You make it sound like I hate geniuses. Don't forget, my talent has reached level 9. Hating geniuses, isn't that hating myself? The great Devis's eyes were filled with anger. These old fellows were all stubborn and thick-headed. Even if they died, they still wanted to hang on, unwilling to recognize the truth. Could it be that changing tactics was that difficult? Perhaps this was the arrogance of geniuses. No matter what, they did not want to be associated with those mediocre people. The great elder's eyes were still filled with disdain, and he retorted coldly, "That's what you say, but don't forget, if you want to prove yourself, it's not just a simple test of talent." I know this. The great Devis's eyes darkened, and he motioned for Tianyan to go and take the test. It seemed like a heavy slap to the face, but if he wanted to prove that his theory was correct, everything depended on the fist. Comprehensive strength was the key. Only with a fight would he know who was right and who was wrong, and not by relying on a mouth. Immediately, Tianyan lifted his feet, and came in front of the test stone tablet. He reached out and covered it. Before the test, he took a deep breath. All this while, he had never tested his talent accurately. However, he knew that talent was not the key. After so many life and death experiences, this was the most valuable experience. Open. Tianyan immediately injected energy into the test stone tablet. Very soon, the stone tablet lit up. After flashing a few times, the final answer appeared in front of him, 6th grade talent. His talent was not bad, not bad, not bad. His parents' talent in Fanyu was not bad, but that was only in Fanyu. If it was here, it was not worth mentioning. However, to be able to reach 6th grade talent was already considered not bad. 6th grade talent, Tianyan smiled. It seemed that his talent was not bad. It could only be considered average, and did not surpass those so-called monstrous geniuses. If he really did surpass them, it would be embarrassing. After all, what the great Devis wanted to try was to recruit ordinary talent, not heaven-defying talent. However, the great Devis still had his own way of saying that he was a monstrous genius. It was just that he did not need it for the time being. When he turned around and was about to come down, the appraisal I showed him the detailed information. Talent testing stone steel. A very general testing method. It simply tests the accuracy of energy control. It doesn't have much reference value. Huh? Tianyan was stunned. This talent stone tablet was so rubbish? It was based on testing the degree of energy control to determine the so-called talent? To put it bluntly, as long as the energy control was accurate enough, then the talent level could be changed. According to this, wouldn't it be changed at will? He turned around again and stared at the talent stone tablet, revealing a smile. What's going on? Isn't the test over? The great elder and the rest frowned. The test had already been done. Why was there still another test? Could it be that he thinks that his talent is too low and not accurate, so he wants to continue testing? Fourth elder, it seems that your disciple is not willing to admit defeat. He wants to continue testing whether his talent can be higher. What a joke. How could this stone tablet be inaccurate? The great elder sneered. Sometimes, you have to learn to accept your fate. Talent is already determined the moment you are born. The great Devis's eyes turned cold. Just as he was about to say something, a dazzling light shot up from the stone tablet and enveloped the hall. 10th grade talent. Absolute 10th grade talent was equivalent to a godly talent. Among all the geniuses here, there was only one person who could reach 10th grade talent, and that was Xiaotian Domain Lord. Chapter 1446. 10th grade talent. How is this possible? The group of people was shocked. Even the Heaven Cultivation Domain Lord stood up in shock, 2 rays of light flashing in his eyes. A 10th grade talent meant that a heavenly god would be born in the future, and a heavenly god was the most valuable. Not to mention a 10th grade talent, even a 9th grade talent would be nurtured without any leeway. It could be said that they did their best to nurture them. The key was that Tianyan had previously only displayed a 6th grade talent. How did he suddenly become a 10th grade talent? Little junior brother is too amazing, he is actually a 10th grade talent. Sword Ruler and the others were stunned. They all had ordinary talent, but their little junior brother was so dazzling, reaching 10th grade talent. It seemed that their luck was too good this time. They actually recruited a monstrous genius. Tianyan let go of his hand and slowly came down from the stone tablet. At this time, the group of people looked at him differently. Some were jealous, some were envious, some were in disbelief, but most were gazes filled with jealousy. A 10th grade talent meant that if he joined the Heaven Cultivation Domain, it would not be a problem to become an elder, and it was even possible to become a deputy domain lord, or even a domain lord. Of course, before this, the domain lord level might be taken by the great Devis, or it might be taken by others. After all, Tianyan's cultivation was still too low. Even if he was a 10th grade talent, it was unlikely that he would immediately become a domain lord or an elder. Little junior brother, you are really amazing, a 10th grade talent. Sword Ruler and the others greeted with smiles, happy for Tianyan's achievements. 10th grade talent, this is really something that Master did not expect. The great Devis also smiled happily. It was naturally a good thing that his disciple had a genius. He did not reject geniuses. He just disliked the way the Heaven Cultivation Domain handled it. Wait a minute, actually, you are all 10th grade geniuses. It should be said that all of you are 10th grade geniuses. Tianyan smiled. They were stunned, not understanding what Tianyan meant. What a joke. What do you mean by everyone is a 10th grade genius? Do you really think 10th grade geniuses are as common as cabbages? After the first elder came to his senses, his heart was filled with jealousy and dissatisfaction. He did not expect a 10th grade genius to appear in the great Devis's camp. A 10th grade talent is as common as a cabbage here. Tianyan smiled. Bullshit. Fourth elder, it seems like your teaching level is limited. You don't even discipline your own disciple, and instead like to spout nonsense. The great elder and the others were all furious. My disciple won't speak irresponsibly. He has his own reasons for saying that. That was what the great Devis said, but he was a little puzzled by Tianyan's actions. He didn't know why he would say that. I'm saying that there's something wrong with this testing stone steel. What you see as a 10th grade talent is actually fake. Tianyan said indifferently. I thought that it would be a very accurate testing stone steel. Who knew that it would be a lousy testing stone steel? What did you say? The great elder and the others were even more furious. He actually suspected that their testing stone steel was inaccurate. Didn't I say that this testing stone steel is not accurate at all? I was a 6th grade talent before, but after some testing, I directly rushed to 10th grade talent. This thing is really inaccurate. Etienne shook his head. Etienne's words immediately attracted everyone's attention. Thinking about it carefully, it was really as he said. He was previously a 6th grade talent, but then he directly rushed to 10th grade talent. What was going on? Impossible. This testing stone steel has always been there, and it has never been inaccurate. We can accurately test our talents through the testing stone steel. After more training, we didn't see any mistakes. The great elder immediately denied. Of course, I can't say that it's detailed. If it's a simple test, it's still slightly more accurate. But if it's accurate, then it's against fairness, causing some really good talents to be buried. Etienne said solemnly. Their pupils shrank. If it was really inaccurate, it would really have a huge impact. It could be said that the geniuses that were previously found would all be wasted. The great Devis was stunned, and then he revealed a smile. If that was really the case, then it would really be funny. This was a rule that had been maintained for many years. If it was suddenly inaccurate, then the sky would really explode. Then how do you think we should do it? The great elder stuttered a little, and his confidence was not as full as before. Thinking about the problem that Etienne had previously, it was very likely that it was really inaccurate. This is simple, you will see in a while. I'll let a few senior brothers test it. They have all tested just now, and I believe you all know how high their talents are. Etienne came to the side of Heavenly Sovereign Sword C, tilted his head, and quietly explained the general method. After Heavenly Sovereign Sword C heard it, his eyes widened, and he was shocked by this method. It can be done like this? Heavenly Sovereign Sword C was a little surprised, and then he immediately walked to the front of the testing stone tablet. He reached out and placed his hand on it, and then he poured energy into it. Soon the entire stone tablet lit up, and it instantly rushed to the 10th grade talent level. Hey, it really works. Heavenly Sovereign Sword C laughed, turned his head to look at the group of dumbfounded disciples, and said, I'm also a 10th grade talent. Why aren't you quickly nurturing me? As he said that, he laughed and walked down. How could the word happy describe his heart? Little junior brother, you are really good at smacking faces. They will definitely be slapped swollen. Heavenly Sovereign Sword C laughed. Etienne smiled, indicating for Heavenly Sovereign Dragon Cry to go up and try. Then, Heavenly Sovereign Dragon Cry came to the front of the testing stone tablet, and similarly placed his hand on it. Then it immediately emitted a dazzling light, 10th grade talent. Next, Heavenly Sovereign Li Tian and Heavenly Sovereign Yu Qian also tried, and they rushed to the 10th grade talent level. This kind of performance completely dumbfounded them. This meant that there was really a problem with the testing stone tablet, and it was a heaven-piercing problem. All the tests in the past were invalid, and they were all failed tests. Etienne's performance this time was no longer as simple as smacking faces. He was digging up the foundation. The testing method that had always been used was disrupted, and it meant that these bunch of geniuses were going to be invalid. Whatever geniuses, they might all be fake. Instantly, the hearts of many geniuses sank to the bottom, and their hatred for Etienne rushed to the peak. They only hoped that they wouldn't be eliminated, or they would really be finished. How is it? What's the result? Etienne smiled faintly. The elders and the others were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Even the Cultivation Heaven region lord was shocked, and they didn't know what to say for a long time. Then their faces turned gloomy, and even a little scary. Chapter 1447. It took a while for the crowd to recover from the fact that the stone tablet was inaccurate. They couldn't quite accept this fact. It had been used for tens of thousands of years. How could it be accurate now? It was like thinking that one's biological parents were right next to them, but in reality, they were adoptive parents and they were picked up from the streets. How can this be inaccurate? They couldn't believe the result. The truth is right in front of us. I can let more people try and ensure that everyone has a 10th grade talent. That way, everyone will have 10th grade talent. Everyone will be happy. Etienne spread his hands. Grand Elder and the rest finally understood why Tianyan said that. It was really inaccurate, and everyone had 10th grade talent. Young friend, how did you do it? At this time, the Cultivation Heaven Region Lord spoke and stared straight at him. His foundation was about to be overturned, so how could he not ask? Tianyan turned to look at the great Devis. He wouldn't listen to Xiaotian Region Lord. He would only listen to the great Devis. Tianyan, say it. The great Devis nodded at him. Tianyan nodded and said to Xiaotian Region Lord, replying Region Lord, it's actually very simple. This stone steel mainly tested one's control of energy. Usually, the cultivators who come up for the test release their greatest power. They don't control the power and precision. Therefore, the value of the test will change. Some attacks are careless, so the grade will naturally be lower. Some energy is more delicate, so the grade will naturally be higher. Because they don't deliberately control it, the value of the test is more realistic. Those who are born with more precise control of energy are indeed equal to the level of talent. However, the premise is that they don't know how to do it. If they do, they can adjust the precision of energy at will. Then everyone will have 10th grade talent. Therefore, I say that this thing is inaccurate. It's simply trash. After a simple explanation, Tianyan retreated to the side and gestured for them to try. Grand Elder quickly arrived in front of the stone tablet. He reached out and slapped his palm on it. Energy continuously surged into it. Soon 10th grade talent appeared in front of them. It looked beautiful, but it was a slap in the face. His talent was only at the 8th stage. Now that it had become the 10th stage, how could it not be considered a mockery? If he didn't know the truth, he could still smile and be happy. Now, there was only a cruel slap in the face. His face was about to be slap swollen. After the great elder stepped down, the other elders went up to try, and all of them easily reached the 10th grade. In the face of such astonishing talent, they couldn't laugh. It was as if they had swallowed a fly, and they felt extremely disgusted. All of them are 10th grade talents. What the hell? This testing stone steel really isn't accurate. Don't tell me I have to go through a new test? Could it be that I've been unable to break through successfully and am stuck at the level of the Lord of Heaven, because my talent is too poor? After they understood the principle, they knew that the problem was extremely serious. The testing stone steel could only detect a portion of one's abilities. In the end, it was still quite limited. But to make such a big mistake, it was really funny. However, no one could laugh out loud. All of them kept a straight face, and no one smiled at all, except for the great Devis and the others. When Heavenly Venerable Sword C saw their expressions, he really wanted to laugh, but he did not laugh out loud. In any case, this was their territory. They could not be too arrogant. Great Elder, looks like this plan of yours won't work. All along, the testing mechanism has been wrong. Why are you still choosing geniuses? The great Devis found it very funny. What was there to prove now? Making a big mistake on their side, any geniuses could be fake. Was there still a need to prove themselves? Not just the great elder. Even the Cultivation Heaven Region Lord's expression was very ugly. If this spread out, they would really have no face left. They had always used this as the standard. It meant that the standard for so many years was all fake. Even so, it still can't prove that your idea is correct. If you want to prove that your idea is correct, then do things according to the previous rules. The great elder said solemnly. Old rules, send someone up to defeat all of our geniuses, and it's considered your win. At that time, my position will be yours. Not just the great elder, the second elder and the rest stood up one after another. Even when encountering this kind of thing, they still did not admit defeat. All along, they had seen these selected disciples in their sights. The talent and potential that erupted out were all very outstanding. It meant that the choice was not wrong. Originally, Tianyan said that there was a problem with this testing stone steel, but it did not mean that there was no effect at all. It was just that it was too general. Under the circumstances of each and every one of them being unaware, they could still filter out outstanding disciples. It was just that some innate power control was not too good. That was buried. In the end, it was still not perfect enough. It was equivalent to a trashy testing stone steel. The great Devis's eyes flickered repeatedly. Looks like this battle could not be avoided. Master, let us go up personally. We similarly want to see if we can surpass these geniuses, or if there's still a gap between us. But we believe that our hard work all along has been for the sake of proving that we absolutely won't lose to anyone. The great Devis looked at their resolute gazes, and was somewhat touched in his heart. Yes, I have always believed that you won't lose to anyone. You have worked harder than anyone. Even if your true talent is weaker than those geniuses, if you work hard enough and use your heart to comprehend, everything will be rewarded. The great Devis's momentum rose. He was full of confidence in them. Go and prove yourself. If they did not have confidence in their own disciples, then they really were not competent enough. Okay. The 5 of them all stood forward, their eyes full of raging fighting spirit. They had long been ready to fight. They looked very imposing, but in the eyes of a group of geniuses, they still felt that it was very ridiculous. Their cultivation was not low, but some of them were really geniuses. They did not need the testing stone steel to know that they were super geniuses. Although the testing stone steel could determine a certain number, the elders of the heaven cultivation god realm were not fools. If they could not keep up in the later stages, then they would be eliminated, and they would not be nurtured without any leeway. Therefore, this matter was very embarrassing, but it did not prevent them from screening out the true geniuses. All 5 of you are going to fight? Then let's go according to the previous method. A battle between people of the same realm. A battle between people of the same realm meant that an upper heavenly venerate was fighting against an upper heavenly venerate, regardless of whether it was early, mid, or late stage. It meant that a power heavenly venerate would not violate the rules even if they faced a late stage upper heavenly venerate. In this way, it would really be a bitter battle. On the contrary, heavenly venerate Dragon Cry and the others, who were late stage middle heavenly venerates, would at least face people of the same realm. Chapter 1448. Fighting at the same cultivation level meant that Tianyan would be facing a peak God Lord level opponent. His current cultivation level was rather pitiful, only at level 7 God Lord level, which was not high. In their opinion, if they sent a peak God Lord level opponent, Tianyan would lose without a doubt. Soon, they began to arrange opponents. Heavenly Venerate Li and the others were not immediately arranged for upper heavenly venerates, but for early lower heavenly venerates, be it the same cultivation level, or even the same level. Although they looked down on those with poor talent, it did not mean they were despicable. Since the other party sent such a cultivation level, they would also send a corresponding cultivation level. This way, even if they won, the great Devis would be convinced. We will also send a corresponding cultivation level opponent to prevent people from saying that we are bullying the weak. You have no objections, right? First Elder stepped forward to preside over the competition. To them, this was the only way to show off their astonishing talent and give them a greater advantage. The same cultivation level, suppressing the opponent, the result would naturally be different. No objections. All of them answered like this. Tianyan also answered like this. His cultivation level was level 7 God Lord. They did not immediately send a peak God Lord level opponent, but a level 7 God Lord level opponent. This was no different from his level. I also have no objections. But even if you send a higher cultivation level opponent, I also have no objections. If I lose, I will also accept my fate. The great Devis said indifferently, because the previous agreement was to defeat all opponents regardless of cultivation level. This was indeed what the great Devis thought. He had been so stubborn in the past. Sometimes, being too stubborn would bring about serious consequences. Previously, he had been high-spirited and felt that he could definitely nurture a super-strong late-stage upper heavenly venerate within 10,000 years. Who knew that he was still so lacking? Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian's highest cultivation level was mid-stage upper heavenly venerate. He was still one level away from reaching late-stage upper heavenly venerate. However, just reaching late-stage upper heavenly venerate would still make a huge difference. After all, that would depend on one's foundation and bloodline level. The overall power would be very different. Let's win this round first. First Elder could not stand the great Devis being so arrogant. In his opinion, this was just a young man who did not know better and was too arrogant. The result might be a tragedy. Let's talk about the rules first. Don't overdo it. You can't kill anyone unless it's caused by some special and unavoidable attack. Otherwise, you'll be severely punished if you deliberately kill someone. The Great Elder was very unhappy with the decision of the Great Devis, but it did not mean that a fight to the death was allowed. They were all on the same side, so there was no need to be so heartless. Immediately, the area was divided into 5 areas, each corresponding to a different opponent. The one who walked in front of Eteonion was an extremely young disciple. His bloodline was relatively good, and there were thin dragon scales on his skin. When this disciple came up, he looked him up and down with disdain, as if he was looking at a defeated opponent. They had just come up, but they were already certain that Eteonion would lose. Humans? You can only find some problems through unorthodox means. Sometimes, even if you see through the stone tablet's problems, it's meaningless. We didn't just rely on this stone tablet to reach this position. This Godlord level 7 disciple was full of disdain towards Eteonion. In his opinion, these were all unorthodox means. There was no meaning in finding loopholes in these corners. They were able to climb to this position because of their strength. When did I not admit that you didn't rely on strength to climb to this position? But if you were only a grade 2 or 3 talent back then, I don't think you could have reached this position. No matter how hard you worked, it would be useless. Eteonion sneered. What he said made sense. But what if he was planned to be a grade 2 or 3 talent? Then he would be completely crippled, and would never be able to make a comeback. Sometimes, this kind of talent testing stone tablet had a hint effect. Seeing that he was only a grade 2 or 3 talent, he would really think that he was trash. Thus he would muddle along and live day by day. This was the reason why Eteonion did not advocate it. A person's life should not be limited by such things. Some people could make a comeback after a fortuitous encounter, or they might encounter something that caused their cultivation realm and perception to increase greatly. Everything was full of variables, but there were strict restrictions here. Once a disciple was deemed to be worthless, then he might be depressed forever. Impossible. No matter what stone tablet my talent is, it can't be low. How can lowly people like you compare? This disciple snorted coldly. Then let me show you what is called a true gap. This disciple immediately erupted. His entire body was covered in dragon scales. Violent dragon blood flowed in his body. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a dragon with a human head. He was filled with astonishing explosive power. Eteonion couldn't help but feel a little surprised by the strong pressure, as expected of the elite of the elite. If he was in the outer divine regions, he could really beat opponents of the same level. He could even fight those of a higher level. Unfortunately, he encountered Eteonion. Boom. This disciple immediately attacked. He didn't use any fancy moves and simply used his fists to smash down on Yi Shiwen. Eteonion did not move. He waited for his opponent to attack. Then he swung his fist to meet it. Fist against fist, it was absolutely fair. This fool, he actually dared to exchange fists with senior brother Longhui. He's simply courting death. Haha, isn't this how humans think? They think too simply. They think they can do it, but who would have thought that they are worse than trash? They will know in a moment. Those with low talent will never be able to rise up, let alone snatch our resources. In the end, they did not want to be passive in their own interests. They had to protect their own interests. No one could touch their own resources. Just when everyone thought that Eteonion would be sent flying by the fist, a ka-la sound was heard. This disciple was sent flying, directly smashing into a group of disciples. Next, Eteonion took a step forward. He looked at them indifferently. Can't even warm me up. Can't you send a stronger one? Where's the so-called genius? Just like this, you still dare to call yourself a genius in front of me? Arrogant, he was just that arrogant. Since the other party was so arrogant and looked down on them, then Eteonion did not need to be polite. If not for the rules, he would have definitely beaten them up. Chapter 1449. With one punch, the opponent was easily defeated. As for the other 4 senior brothers and sisters, the situation was the same. They used overwhelming strength to force their opponents back, without any ability to retaliate. It could be said to be an all-round suppression, a complete one-sided suppression. It wasn't that these prodigies were suppressing them, but rather being ruthlessly suppressed by them with no way to resist. However, they weren't like Yi Tianyan, who could kill them in one move. The fact that they were able to ruthlessly suppress these so-called geniuses in a crushing manner was already enough to shock everyone. This wasn't just shocking, it was also a slap in the face. What prodigies, they were so weak in front of them. Boom boom boom. Shocking explosions rang out as one opponent after another was sent flying out of the stage. The first batch of opponents were all defeated, none of them winning. Especially when they won in a clean and efficient manner, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. They suppressed their opponents with every move and won the first round in a perfect and invincible manner. The first victory of the first round shocked everyone. It was an all-around crushing. How could they not be shocked? This was beyond their expectations. They thought they could suppress them and slap the face of the great Devis. Now it seemed like they were wrong, and it was a huge mistake. They couldn't win in one round, not even one set. All 5 of them successfully defeated their opponents. Grand Elder, the first batch is over. We can continue with the next batch. The great Devis indicated that they could continue. Grand Elder's face darkened. He didn't expect to lose so cleanly. It was simply the effect of being completely crushed. All right, then let's choose the second batch. Grand Elder continued to choose the second batch. As they thought they could win in one go, there was no second batch to choose from, and they could only choose again on the spot. They have some ability. We must defeat them this time. Grand Elder felt even more displeased and immediately arranged for the strongest elites of this level to come over. The one arranged for Yi Tianyan was still at God Monarch level 7, but much stronger than before. Be it bloodline or other aspects of strength, they were all stronger. Initially, they didn't think they needed to arrange for the strongest, just an upper level would be enough. Who knew they would be easily crushed? After the arrangements were made, they went up one after another. The arrogance on their faces could be seen. If arrogance could materialize, the surroundings would probably be filled with arrogance. To be able to defeat junior brother Long Hui, you do have some ability, but it ends here. Everything will end in my hands. I'll let you know what kind of position you're in. Before he could finish his sentence, an afterimage had already rushed in front of him. Before he could react, he only felt a wave of pain, and then he lost consciousness. His outcome was no different from Sir Godlong Hui's. He was sent flying by a punch, and he crashed into the group of disciples, causing a large number of them to collapse. There were quite a number of cultivators gathered around. Basically, if he were to smash down, he would hit at least a few of them. Moreover, they didn't know how to dodge. Instead, they wanted to catch him. Who knew that the impact would be so strong that they almost fainted? You talk a lot of nonsense. Where the hell did you put it? I'll tell you to scram right now. Yi Tianyan looked at them coldly and said. Yi Tianyan easily defeated these so-called geniuses and took the lead again, becoming the first to finish. As for the other 4, Celestial Venerable Sword C and Celestial Venerable Dragon Cry had fallen into bitter battles. The genius disciples that were sent out again were indeed somewhat capable. However, a bitter battle didn't mean that they couldn't win. As for Celestial Venerable Yu Qian and Celestial Venerable Power Sky, they similarly suppressed their opponents with relatively strong strength and finally won. Behind them, Celestial Venerable Sword C and Celestial Venerable Dragon Cry also won this round. With that, they immediately became the cream of the crop among their peers. Grand Elder had already sent out his strongest genius. If that didn't work, it meant that he had to send out geniuses of a higher level to suppress them. How can they still win like this? Grand Elder and the rest had ugly expressions. They had already sent out their most outstanding genius. How could they still lose? They won, they won. The Domain Empress was extremely excited. She was naturally very happy to see the person sent by her son win this round. Cultivation Sky Domain Lord turned to look at her, and she obediently shut her mouth. Cultivation Sky Domain Lord frowned and looked at Yi Tianyan in disbelief. He didn't expect that the disciple taught by his son would be so valiant. Could it be that our decisions have been wrong all this while? Cultivation Sky Domain Lord began to doubt himself. Or rather, he began to doubt the rules of the Cultivation Sky Celestial Realm. If these rules couldn't bring about the best benefits, then they should be abolished. However, he had to wait and see what the outcome would be. There were many things that he couldn't decide on his own. After all, there were still so many elders and deacons. They all had some decision-making power. Good. The vast divine sex morale sword. He was very excited. These were the disciples he had nurtured. Apart from Tianyan, who didn't teach them much, the rest were taught by him personally. The strength they displayed now exceeded his expectations. Then he looked at Grand Elder with a burning gaze and said, "Now you need to send out stronger opponents. In other words, we will have to fight someone of a higher level." Grand Elder and the rest's gazes darkened. In theory, they didn't want to reach this step. Even if they won, they wouldn't feel that it was very glorious. If they couldn't beat their opponents at the same level, it could only mean that their overall level was too low. However, they couldn't admit defeat now. They could only bite the bullet and send their people up. All right, as you wish. Grand Elder immediately sent out stronger geniuses. Tianyan's opponent was an 8th level divine monarch, slightly stronger. As for them, they also sent a stronger genius. This meant that Heavenly Venerable Sword C and the rest were in danger. They were facing an upper-level Heavenly Venerable. When facing an opponent a level higher than them, all of them had grave expressions. This wasn't an easy thing. Fighting someone of a higher level was often the most dangerous. It was easier to lose. However, it depended on how much strength they had left. For example, Heavenly Venerable Sword C and Heavenly Venerable Dragon Cry probably couldn't win this match. When fighting someone of the same level, it was already very difficult for them. Now that they were fighting someone of a higher level, the difficulty would be even higher. This time we won. Don't blame us. Back then, you swore to defeat all the geniuses of the Cultivation Sky Celestial Realm. Grand Elder said solemnly. Chapter 1450. The Great Devis's words made them look up to him. They had thought that he would say a few more words of rebuttal, but it seemed that they had overthought things. The Great Devis was a man of his word. No matter what he said before, it would not change now. Even if they lost, they had to carry out this belief. If they lost, they would have to bear all the consequences themselves. All right. Grand Elder's eyes were complicated, but he did not waver. He did not want the Great Devis to break the rules. Even now, they showed no signs of wavering. They did not want to change the rules that had been in place for many years. Nothing could be accomplished without rules. The rules of the past could not be changed. With a command, the match began immediately. The battle had only just begun, but Heavenly Venerate Dragon Cry and the others were already in an extremely bitter fight. If this continued, they would lose without a doubt. Their opponents were not only a level higher than them, but their talent was even more shocking. It was too difficult to win. Therefore, the outcome could only be defeat. But Heavenly Venerate Force Sky and Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian were locked in battle with their opponents. For a moment, no one knew what the outcome would be. On the other hand, Tianyan still didn't have any explosive power. He just casually kicked the opponent in front of him. And the opponent was directly kicked away, easily killed. Too weak. This is the genius you speak of? He said indifferently. Send someone stronger. This is still too weak. Tianyan once again stole all the limelight. Although it was a Divine Lord level battle, it was still extremely difficult to skip levels. The difficulty was about the same as a Heavenly Venerate level battle. But Tianyan still defeated his opponent in an instant. There was no difference. A group of people stared at this side. They thought that Tianyan would also fall into a hard fight, but who would have thought that it would be a one-shot? Like a gust of wind, he kicked his opponent like a ball, flying towards them. Grand Elder and the others' faces darkened. They suddenly thought of what the Great Devis had said. That was, Tianyan would be the new domain master. In this case, it was normal that they could not discuss it with common sense. However, they didn't say anything about it. Instead, They decided to watch the battle between Heavenly Celestial Force and the others. Once it was over, they would decide who to send. Roar! Heavenly Venerate Force roared as his mighty god bloodline burst forth. He violently thrashed his opponent and won this round. It was the same for Heavenly Venerable Yu Qian. She didn't have an astonishing bloodline, but she had a stubborn strength. She had forcefully defeated her opponent, barely. They had won by a narrow margin, and had almost been defeated. 3 out of the 5 won. Among them, Empyrean Yu Qian won against a late-stage Upper Empyrean powerhouse. It was simply inconceivable. Didn't that mean that he had won? Of course not. The late Upper Empyrean powerhouse that the Great Elder sent out would not be the strongest one. Being able to send a late-stage Upper Heavenly Venerate opponent was already a little embarrassing. Sending their strongest opponent was simply too embarrassing. We won. Heavenly Sovereign Force and the others roared out. Their victory was the most difficult, so they felt even more deeply moved. Tianyan wasn't as excited as them. He just smiled slightly. He had only displayed a portion of his strength. If he had displayed his entire strength, wouldn't they all be shocked? This round is your victory, but there's still the next round. The Great Elder poured a bucket of cold water on them and said in a deep voice, "If you still win this round, then it'll be considered your victory." Heavenly Venerate Force and the others were startled, but they didn't say anything. According to the promise that the Great Devis had previously made, they could indeed continue to make arrangements. Defeating all the geniuses meant that they could continue to send out people. Those who were originally sent out were not the most outstanding, so naturally, they wouldn't win. As long as they defeated their most outstanding genius, they would officially acknowledge it. Alright. Then let's compete in the last round. Heavenly Venerate Force and the others nodded their heads, intending to accept this battle. Following this, they adjusted their breathing and consumed recovery pills. Only after they had fully recovered would they continue to the next round. This time, they had sent out their strongest genius. It could be said that they were the strongest geniuses at every stage. First, the genius that Heavenly Venerate Force faced was at the late-stage Upper Heavenly Venerate level. In fact, he was the opponent that Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian had just defeated. Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian had barely defeated him. Now that it was Heavenly Venerate Force's turn, it would be extremely difficult. Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian's opponent was a brand new super genius. His cultivation base was also at the late-stage Upper Heavenly Venerate level. However, the power that he displayed was completely different. A special energy was slowly released from his body, forming a special space within a specific range. Tianyan looked up and immediately felt that this person was very powerful. And it was an extremely powerful level. Ninefold Heavenly Venerate. Possesses the power of the 9 dragons bloodline. Can release the power of 9 dragons in a single breath to destroy heaven and earth. The power of the 9 dragons bloodline? Tianyan was taken aback. Although this was also a dragon bloodline, it was definitely a top 5 bloodline in terms of quality. Just this bloodline power alone was far superior to Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian's bloodline. The cultivation celestial realm naturally didn't judge a genius based on the testing stone steel. The stone steel was only one of the factors. The other factor was the bloodline. If the bloodline was ranked at the top, there was no need to talk about it at all. The testing stone steel wouldn't even be needed. The bloodline ranking was more reliable than the testing stone steel, and had existed for a longer time. No one knew who ranked it, but judging from the past, it was indeed at a heaven-defying level. No one could resist it. Looks like senior sister Yu Qian is in danger. Tianyan frowned. The cultivation celestial realm was indeed powerful. They even had geniuses with such a level of bloodline. It wouldn't be an injustice to lose if they met. You should be concerned about what kind of opponent you're facing. At that moment, a cold voice came from ahead, drawing Tianyan's attention. He saw a handsome young man standing in front of him. An icy aura was released from his body. It was obvious that he cultivated ice attribute martial arts. Tianyan sized him up and smiled. I don't need to know. I only need to know one thing. You can't defeat me. Arrogant. The young man sneered. Do you think you're invincible just because you defeated 1 or 2 opponents? It seems that you've really inherited the fourth elder's arrogance and pride. But I'll let you know soon. Bang! Chapter 1451. A super genius at the peak Divine Lord level was still sent flying by Etienne's kick. She didn't even have the slightest ability to resist. It looked like a sneak attack, but it was actually so fast that the opponent couldn't react and defeated her in one move. This situation caused an uproar once again. They were all thick-skinned enough to raise their opponent to the peak Divine Lord level. Not only was she at the peak Divine Lord level, but she was also the strongest genius at the peak level. In the end, she was still defeated without the slightest bit of resistance. This made them wonder if this senior brother of theirs was a fake senior brother. Etienne's side was shocking, but Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian's side was basically suppressed. Her opponent was just too strong. The powerful Nine Dragons bloodline attacked in a variety of ways, and the power of dragons surrounded her from all sides. Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian was pushed back again, and again until she was completely blown away. The Great Devas quickly flew over, and reached out to grab Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian. The power of dragons wrapped around her quickly dissipated, leaving nothing behind. Master, I'm sorry. 2 drops of tears rolled down Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian's eyes. She didn't expect to fail in the end. She didn't win for her master. It's fine. You've done very well. It's just a burden Master has imposed on you. The Great Devas waved his hand, and a light shrouded Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian as he started to heal her. His mentality had already changed. Or rather, it had changed before he came. He had been arrogant at the time, thinking that everything would succeed, and that he could change the stubbornness of the Heaven Cultivation Celestial Domain. Now it seemed that he was still too young. He had let his disciple fall into such humiliation. This wasn't the result he wanted. Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian fainted. She had held on for a long time before she was defeated. Her body had suffered very serious injuries. If this had continued, she would have died. If her opponent hadn't sent her flying out of the arena, she would have died on the arena. She was unwilling to admit defeat. Heavenly Venerate Yu Qian was that stubborn. She wouldn't give up until she died. However, she would lose here. In the final battle of 5, only Etienne could win. I won. Does this count as Master's side winning? Etienne interrupted, his voice echoing throughout the hall. First Elder and the others were startled. Only now did they remember that Etienne had won. First Elder had said that as long as they could win this round, it would be a victory for them. It didn't matter if Yu Qian lost, but if Etienne won, it would be the final victory. Heavenly Venerate You to the Heavenly Venered Divine Vener heaved. At this moment, everyone's gazes were focused on him. If it was as he said, then it would truly be a victory for the boundless heavenly deities. Well, you could say that. It was a bit difficult for the Grand Elder to answer. However, what he had just said could only become reality. The strongest genius of a divine monarch was defeated, and they couldn't call out any stronger genius, unless they let a heavenly master deal with Etienne. However, this was not the same realm, but a major realm. Heavenly Venerate Sword C and the others were still Heavenly Venerates, so the meaning was different. However, it was different now. Divine Lord against Heavenly Venerate, that was a major realm. The difficulty was obvious. Me too. At this moment, one of the youths stood out and looked coldly at Etienne. I'm stronger. Come and have a match with me. This man was also at the peak Divine Monarch realm. At a glance, Etienne knew that this man's overall level was not as good as the previous one. However, they refused to admit defeat. They wanted to fight with Etienne again, until everyone lost. Alright, come on up. Etienne gestured for him to come up. Since that was the case, he wouldn't reject anyone. He would fight as many as they came. First Elder didn't have time to stop him. That youth charged up and poured out all the anger in his heart. He aimed his sword at Etienne. He poured all his strength into it. With one sword, it was like 10,000 swords attacking, locking down a large area. There was no way to escape. Etienne still didn't use any fancy moves. He just turned over and kicked the man, quickly found the flaw in the man's defense, and easily broke the man's defense and kicked him away. Next, Yi Tianyun's right hand was behind his back. He stretched out his left hand and gestured for them to continue attacking. He looked calm and relaxed. Against a god lord, a super god lord title could instantly kill any god lord. No matter how invincible a god lord genius was, they would have to kneel in front of this title. With this buff, not only would his damage increase, but he could also have an absolute suppression effect. This was equivalent to 100 times damage. How could he fight like that? Let me. Another genius roared and charged up. They were extremely unhappy with Yi Tianyun. How could they be happy about destroying the testing stone tablet? Especially when they thought that their talent might not be at this level, they felt very unhappy. But anger couldn't increase their strength. They could only become cannon fodder, and were sent flying by Yi Tianyun's kick. This is the so-called genius you are talking about? I am only a 6th grade talent. You guys are at least 7th grade talents, right? You even told me to be in the right position. I think you are the ones who should be in the right position. Yi Tianyun snorted. Good talent can give you a higher starting point. But it doesn't mean that you are the kings of this era. Yi Tianyun's aura surged, pressuring them so much that they kept retreating. Their legs were trembling. Just this aura alone was enough to make them not dare to continue fighting. Let me. There were still people who bit the bullet and wanted to fight. They didn't want to be suppressed by a 6th grade talent opponent. All of them wanted to charge over and defeat Yi Tianyun in a continuous battle. But when they wanted to continue, First Elder snorted. Enough! At this time, the disciples stopped, their faces filled with indignation. Were they going to lose just like that? Your standard doesn't seem to be at the level of a god lord. It is very likely that you are hiding your strength. Your true standard might be at the level of a heavenly venerable. But now you are hiding your strength. I estimate that you are at the level of a god lord. First Elder didn't admit defeat, but turned to other aspects. He thought that Yi Tianyun's true cultivation was at the level of a heavenly venerable. He was deliberately hiding his cultivation to suppress them. Wouldn't a god lord win against a heavenly venerable? This way, they could complete their mission. Chapter 1452. Yi Tianyun thought that Great Elder would admit defeat, but it seemed that he was naive. This old fellow didn't want to admit defeat at all. Now that he saw a point, he immediately grabbed onto it tightly. Very good. Then you can test my cultivation to see if I'm a divine lord or a celestial venerable. Yi Tianyun stretched out his hand, his gaze very cold. He was naturally not afraid of being tested. His cultivation was divine lord, there was no change. At this time, the great Devis stood out, blocking in front of Yi Tianyun and said solemnly, "Looks like you guys still think that I will use this method to muddle through?" This was no longer a problem of divine lord and celestial venerable cultivation, but a problem of personal principles. From the side, it was equivalent to saying that the great Devis was cheating. How could he tolerate it? That's hard to say. God knows if you will use this point. Knowing that you can't win the battle, you choose to cheat. Great Elder started to slander the great Devis, feeling that in order to win, he would do anything. I, Howhan, will never do such a thing in my life. Maybe I've done many wrong things, but I'm definitely not this kind of despicable person, especially towards cultivating the god realm. The great Devis's tone was cold to the extreme as he stared at Great Elder, wishing that he could slap him to death with one slap. Whether it is or not, we'll know after the test. If you don't let me check, then you have a guilty conscience. Great Elder still didn't give up, feeling that there was definitely a problem. Otherwise, how could he have such heaven-defying ability to beat them until they couldn't fight back? No matter what cultivation, they were all settled in one move, which made them feel that it was very inconceivable. Celestial Venerable Swordsy and the others at the side also felt very angry. Could it be that they were all blind? What weapon was so powerful that it could hide its cultivation so deeply? With so many celestial gods staring at it, it would definitely be seen through. On the other hand, their expressions were even more strange. So what if he defeated a divine lord? This little junior brother of theirs killed celestial venerables like slaughtering dogs, easily beheading a large group. Not to mention jumping levels to kill a divine lord. Jumping levels to easily kill a celestial venerable was not a problem. Therefore, all of them had full confidence in Tianyan. They were just here to serve as a foil. Who knew that he would be suspected of Tianyan not being a god monarch? What if you're still a divine monarch after the inspection? The great Devis looked at him coldly. If he's a divine monarch, it proves that there's no problem. Even if fourth elder has always been upright and upright, many people still feel that this is inconceivable. If we don't inspect it, how can we quell their doubts? Great elder looked around. Many people indeed had doubts about this. Their top divine lord geniuses could even withstand an early stage lower Empyrean, and they could even deal with them. But now, he was defeated by a 7th level god monarch. How could they believe it? Perhaps he was a genius at the late stage lower heavenly venerable realm, who had his aura suppressed by some treasure, causing others to mistake him for a divine monarch cultivation when he was actually at the heavenly venerable level. How could he fight like that? Alright, I'll let you inspect it. If he's really a divine monarch, I hope you apologize for your actions just now. The great Devis said sternly. That's an insult to me. If there's really no problem, then I'll apologize for my actions. Great Elder didn't waste time. He immediately went in front of Tianyan, grabbed his arm, and started inspecting his body. After a simple inspection, he was stunned. His cultivation was really at the 7th level god monarch, no more, no less. There was no change at all. No, that's impossible. If he's really a 7th level god monarch, how could he have such shocking power? All of us here are elite geniuses who went through many rounds of selection. It's impossible for him to be defeated so easily. Great Elder took a few steps back, feeling incredulous. Didn't this mean that the disciples nurtured by the great Devis were many levels stronger than their disciples? Seeing this, 2nd Elder quickly came over, grabbed Tianyan's arm, and started inspecting. After a simple round, they didn't see anything special. Forget about hidden treasures, they didn't even detect any treasures. He's really a 7th level god monarch. 2nd Elder was also shocked. Previously, he was the same as Great Elder, holding a skeptical attitude. Now that they really checked the truth, they were deeply shocked. Of course, they couldn't detect the planets in Tianyan's body. These weren't things that could be easily checked. If they wanted to check, it was basically no different from searching his soul. Moreover, they didn't need to go too deep to check his cultivation. They just needed to do a slight check. If there were any treasures that locked his aura, it would be very easy to find out. Now that they couldn't find anything, the result was naturally the same, 7th level god monarch. A cultivation that shocked them was placed in front of them just like that. Is there anything else to check? Tianyan gestured for the other elders to come up and check, but no one came to check. 2 elders had checked, and both said he was a 7th level god monarch, so the other elders didn't need to check anything. They all looked at each other, not knowing what to say. At this time, Great Elder stood up with difficulty, and said with some difficulty, "Here I solemnly apologize to 4th Elder, I shouldn't have suspected you. But in order to be fair, we have to check." Great Elder finally apologized slowly, but his sincerity was a little fake. He didn't forget to give himself a set of excuses, so that he wouldn't be so embarrassed. But Great Elder's tone suddenly changed and he said, "The competition still has to continue. According to this, we can't simply judge by divine lord level. We have to fight at least heavenly venerables. As long as you fight all heavenly venerables, which is lower level heavenly venerables, we will officially recognize your proof." Once this was said, there was an immediate uproar. Divine Lord fighting heavenly venerables? Did they hear wrongly? Fighting heavenly venerables was fine, but all lower level heavenly venerables, including late stage lower level heavenly venerables, had to be dealt with to be considered successful. This way, the difficulty was really high. How despicable. Heavenly Venerable Sword C and the others felt very annoyed, but they only felt very displeased. The corners of their mouths curled into a faint smile. If this was the standard, then they weren't afraid at all. Their junior brother could even fight middle-level Heavenly Venerables head-on. What was a mere lower-level Heavenly Venerables afraid of? Chapter 1453. That's not how the rules are set, is it? The great Devis's eyes turned cold. It was one thing to test one's cultivation level, but now they were playing this game. Wasn't it a bit too much to surpass levels and defeat heavenly venerables? He'd heard of Etienne's strength and knew that he was capable. But sometimes it wasn't a matter of ability, but of principle. As mentioned before, this was a competition between cultivators of the same level, but now it was a competition between cultivators of different levels. No. You set the rules. You only said that he could defeat all of our geniuses. Now that you're giving us a standard, we're already lowering our standards. The great elder's expression was calm, not at all ashamed of his words. That's what I said, but is it really going to be like that? The great Devis was furious. According to this, if they brought a Lord of Heaven, the opponent would have to face a heavenly god? How could they fight like that? It's not like that. Your disciple is so strong. Aren't you going to let him try? The great elder smiled faintly. His performance has exceeded our expectations. He might be able to defeat lower heavenly venerables. If he can defeat lower heavenly venerables by 3 levels, we'll consider it your win. It wasn't just the great elder. The other elders all nodded in agreement. The great Devis looked at his father. The Xiaotian region lord didn't waver at all. He was still sitting there, motionless. You've gone too far. The region empress stood up and said coldly. How can you make such a conclusion? If word of this gets out, the Xiaotian god realm will lose face. The region empress loved her son dearly. They finally got to see him. And now they wanted to force him away? The crowd fell silent. They all looked up at the Xiaotian region lord. Could this be the region lord's idea? Sit down. The region lord glanced at them, and said in a tone that brooked no disobedience. The region empress looked at him, wanting to say something but hesitating. In the end she chose to sit down. The region lord looked over and said, he is indeed more powerful. This isn't against the rules. True geniuses have to fight higher levels. It's not a problem to fight higher levels. We also have geniuses of this level here, such as the 9-fold celestial sovereign, who can fight against empyrean gods. Only in this way can he be considered a true genius. He doesn't mean to go against what the 4th elder said. What else could the great Devis say when the heavenly cultivation domain lord had spoken? All right. The great Devis's face was gloomy. It seemed like his father still didn't support him, and still chose to stand on the opposite side. Then he looked at Etienne and was about to say something, but Etienne beat him to it and said with a smile, Master, leave this to me. I will let them know exactly where they went wrong. Etienne took a step forward and glanced at them coldly. Come, who was the first one to come up? Let me go first. At this moment, a lower-level heavenly paragon jumped out. His entire body was emitting a domineering aura. Muscles bulged out of his body, making him look extremely disgusting. However, this was more of a symbol of power. He possessed super strength, and even if he wasn't as strong as the mighty god's bloodline, he wasn't too far off. It's heavenly paragon Karma. He's very strong. That kid uses his fists. Heavenly paragon Karma uses his fists too. He will definitely be able to defeat that kid. This is going to be interesting. That kid's arm will definitely be crippled. How arrogant of him. I don't like him. I don't know where he came from. Maybe he cheated to win against our senior brother. They were all excited to see heavenly paragon Karma come up. They felt that they would definitely win this time. They didn't know what shamelessness was. They only knew that they had to win. Otherwise, the cards would really be reshuffled. Etienne looked at heavenly paragon Karma, and turned to look at him. This person was definitely an outstanding early-stage lower-level heavenly paragon. Looking at him, he was the strongest early-stage lower-level heavenly paragon. Looks like they sent their strongest as soon as they came up. They don't want to drag things out anymore. Etienne smiled. He wasn't as concerned about face as before. He wanted to suppress heavenly paragon Karma immediately. After heavenly paragon Karma came up, he looked at him coldly. I heard that you're very strong? All this time, I've never had a match in terms of strength. However, your cultivation is so much lower than mine. I'll let you punch me first. Let's see if you can move me. However, with your strength just now, it's really no different from an itch. His two huge fists slapped each other, emitting a dong-dong sound. Then he patted his chest, indicating for Tianyun to attack him. Such a generous gesture was actually a provocation to Tianyun. Is that so? Then I won't be polite. Tianyun grinned. He wouldn't be polite to such an idiot. With a stomp of his foot, he dashed toward Karma Heavenly Lord and raised his fist to punch Karma Heavenly Lord. This punch didn't look impressive at all. It felt a little light, as if it didn't have any strength. Isn't the strength of this punch a little too weak? There's no strength at all. I don't think he can even make Heavenly Paragon Karma retreat, let alone injure him. That's probably it. Where's that arrogance from just now? He's cowering now. He's going to admit defeat later. Maybe he used up all his strength before. How could he still have any strength left? Let's watch Heavenly Paragon Karma beat him up, and let them know the real gap between us. These were the words that they often said. They wanted to let their opponents know the gap between geniuses and mediocre people. Under their halo, the gap would only get bigger and bigger. They would never be able to catch up. Block it. The first elder and the others narrowed their eyes and shouted for Heavenly Paragon Karma to block it. However, there was no need for them to remind him. Heavenly Paragon Karma's eyes narrowed. Originally, he had said that he would give way. Now he put his hand in front of his chest. His thick muscles were like an iron wall. At the same time, a faint yellow light enveloped his palm, making it look like a sturdy wall. Through the gap in his palm, Heavenly Paragon Karma saw Tianyun's mocking smile. Dong! A loud explosion erupted from Empyrean Attainment Force's palm. His entire palm was sent flying away along with his massive body. Even the void was shattered by this punch, causing cracks to spread out in all directions. Heavenly Lord Karma immediately turned into a meteor and flew into the sky. However, in the next moment, the Grand Elder had already flown over, grabbed Heavenly Exalt Karma, and held him firmly in midair. Chapter 1454. Tianyun's punch had almost pierced through Heavenly Venerate Karma. However, he had been merciful. Otherwise, Heavenly Venerate Karma would have been blown to smithereens. His current strength was no joke. The fusion of the Dragon God bloodline and the Phoenix bloodline had become an even more powerful bloodline. Just this bloodline alone was enough to unleash an astonishing amount of power. Apart from that, he also had other shocking bloodlines and the equipment he was wearing. When all of them were stacked together, he could suppress a lower Heavenly Venerate even without the crazy damage mode. In terms of strength, these guys were still too young. Especially this idiot, who had allowed him to attack freely. If he had resisted with all his might, he might not have been killed in one punch. However, if he had not been prepared at all, and allowed Tianyun to attack, he would have been an idiot. Tianyun had seen this kind of idiot before. They all thought that they were very powerful and looked down on their opponents. In the end, he had killed them in one move. This kind of person made Tianyun feel relaxed. He did not need to waste any time. Next, Tianyun gently raised his hand, indicating that they could arrange for the next one. The crowd was silent. Heavenly Venerate Karma, who they had high hopes for, had been killed in one move. Even if he tried to defend, he could not do so in time. He was easily killed by a single punch. Especially when he said next. It instantly caused them to feel as if they'd awoken from a dream and awakened from their shock. Despicable. You actually sneak attacked. Heavenly Venerate Karma was not prepared, and you already attacked. That's right, it was a sneak attack. Heavenly Venerate Karma was not prepared, and you already attacked. You are too despicable. Heavenly Venerate Karma was talking to you just now, and you actually sneak attacked. You are too shameless. All of them started cursing. They felt that Tianyun had sneak attacked. Heavenly Venerate Karma was not prepared, and Tianyun attacked. Even if it was a sneak attack, it was a sneak attack. Sneak attack? Tianyun sneered. Just based on what you said, you still dare to call me a genius? You are simply pigs. Don't insult the word genius. You're not worthy. You're still talking about a sneak attack? He said he would let me punch once, so I directly punched him. You're still talking about a sneak attack? If you're not convinced, then come at me, you bunch of trash. Tianyun looked at them coldly. Even a clay figurine would have a bit of anger. This group of people were just like those great elders, reneging on a bet after losing. The standards were raised again and again. It was truly disgusting. Everyone's expression changed. One by one they shouted, "Who are you calling trash? Let's go." Who's afraid of who? You go? Me? Why don't you go? Didn't you say it was a sneak attack? Go up and fight him. They said they wanted to fight, but who really dared to go up? They sure knew how to talk, but when it came down to it, all of them cowered, not daring to step up. Their cultivations were at the level of a divine lord, or the Lord of Heaven. They would only be cannon fodder if they went up. Hadn't the previous divine lords been abused enough? Heavenly Venerable Sword C and the others laughed. They were even more disdainful of the geniuses of the heaven cultivating God realm. These fools, their mouths are all impressive, but they don't have the ability. Sneak attacks? If they really had the ability, why would they be afraid of this little sneak attack? Little junior brother is amazing. He can defeat an Empyrean with one punch. If we were at the Divine Lord level, even if we could deal with him, it wouldn't be so easy. I can only say that Heavenly Venerable Karma is a little stupid. He thinks that little junior brother is an ordinary Divine Lord. Speaking of which, why is little junior brother so amazing? They are all Divine Lords, so why is the gap so big? Is it because Earth Monarch Jiulian is a little more powerful? Earth Monarch Jiulian, that's possible. But that's not right. Is he that amazing? Heavenly Venerable Sword C and the others were all discussing. They felt that Tianyun had really helped them vent their anger by beating up this group of fools. Enough. The competition is valid. Next, Great Elder growled, indicating for them to shut up and let the next Empyrean go up. Soon a middle-stage low-level Empyrean came out. He carried a huge sword on his back. It looked very exaggerated. It was over a dozen meters long. Generally, it was extremely rare to use such a huge sword, mainly because it was not too convenient. And this huge sword was an Empyrean spirit treasure. The power that erupted out was absolutely shocking. Buzz. When this huge sword was pulled out, it vibrated slightly and gave off a buzzing sound. The vibrations caused the space to shake a little. There are some things that should be said and some things that shouldn't be said. Don't you know that? Heavenly Venerable Giant Sword held this huge sword tightly, as if he was holding a wooden stick. His indifferent words turned into a wave of aura that swept over to Tianyun. Instantly, Tianyun's surroundings were shrouded by sword chi, and he became within the attack range. As long as the sword went down, it would definitely hit. This was his ability. Shouldn't this sentence be said by me? Tianyun looked at him indifferently and said, "Oh, then I'll cut off your tongue. I wonder if you can still say it." Heavenly Venerable Giant Sword walked towards Tianyun step by step, his eyes filled with killing intent. "Cut off my tongue?" Tianyun sneered. "Then let's see if you can cut it off." Break. Heavenly Venerable Giant Sword suddenly slashed down with his sword. The surrounding sword chi suddenly surged up, turning into countless wind blades that swept towards Tianyun. Every wind blade was extremely sharp and the speed was as fast as lightning, turning into faint white shadows that sliced over. Every wind blade just happened to be aimed at Tianyun's mouth. When he said he would cut off his tongue, he meant it. At the same time, the huge sword in the air ruthlessly slashed down, still aiming at Tianyun's area, wanting to lock him down from all directions. His attack was extremely ruthless. Even if this move didn't kill Tianyun, he would definitely be cut into several pieces. In any case, as long as his soul wasn't destroyed, he definitely wouldn't die. However, he would be seriously injured, and it would take a long time for him to recover. Heavenly Venerable Giant Sword wasn't as careless as Heavenly Venerable Karma. His attack was extremely powerful, all for the sake of killing with one move. He didn't want to waste any time. Tianyun's figure fluttered as he rapidly entered the void. The surrounding wind blades didn't affect him at all. As long as they didn't cut through space, they couldn't cause any harm to him. Power of the void. Everyone's eyes widened. This extremely rare ability actually appeared in the hands of a human? Heavenly Venerable Giant Sword's eyes narrowed as he rapidly locked onto the void that Tianyan had just entered. His sword slashed down heavily as he roared. Even if you hide in the void, it won't work. Get out here. Where are you slashing? A ghostly voice came from behind him. Heavenly Venerable Giant Sword's heart turned cold. He wanted to quickly counterattack with his sword, but it was already too late. A heavy kick came down, sending him crashing into the ground like a meteor. His back caved in. Chapter 1455. Heavenly Venerate Giant Sword nearly fainted after being kicked by Tianyan. His back had caved in, and his organs felt like they were about to shift. Just as he was about to get up and continue his fight with Tianyan, all of a sudden, a heavy force came crashing down on him again, kicking him so hard that his entire body was smashed to the ground. His entire face was stuck to the ground. Bang! The dull thud made him dizzy. He felt like he had really almost fainted, but he didn't. The main reason was that Tianyan had shown mercy. He would not let Heavenly Lord Karma off so easily. Crack! Then, Heavenly Venerate Giant Sword felt a sharp pain in his arm. By the time he looked to the side, he discovered that Tianyan's foot had already stepped on his shoulder, crushing his arm. He didn't stop there. He continued to stomp several times, breaking Empyrean Giant Sword's 4 limbs. The intense pain made Heavenly Venerate Giant Sword pale. However, he did not cry out in pain. This bit of pain was nothing. You still have some backbone. I thought you were all delicate and didn't have any backbone at all. Although it looked like a simple snap, there was actually a surge of energy entering his body and wreaking havoc. The pain was far more painful than breaking a bone. Then, Tianyan sent him flying with a kick, rolling out of the arena. At the same time he said, "You want to cut off my tongue? Then I'll cut off all your limbs." Since Empyrean Giant Sword was so ruthless, then there was no need for him to be courteous. He crippled Empyrean Giant Sword's 4 limbs. Of course, these injuries weren't difficult to recover from. He just wanted to teach Empyrean Giant Sword a lesson. Empyrean Giant Sword was easily kicked back, leaving everyone dumbfounded. Even Empyrean Giant Sword was instantly killed? If Heavenly Venerate Karma was considered to be stupid, then Heavenly Venerate Giant Sword was using his full strength to kill Tianyan. Now he was instantly killed. Before anyone could understand what was going on, Heavenly Venerate Giant Sword had already been killed. Nothing had stopped. It could be said that the battle was over in a split second. The end of the battle was not important. The important thing was that they had lost. Lost. Only then did they realize something. They couldn't accept this fact. A Divine Lord had easily killed a mid-stage Heavenly Venerate powerhouse without the slightest ability to retaliate. Those with slightly higher cultivation were also deeply shocked. The power of the void. Hiding within the void, I can easily dodge the Giant Sword Empyrean's attack. Then for some reason he appeared behind the Giant Sword Empyrean. Entering the void is indeed more concealed, but isn't his speed a little too fast? You're telling me you're a Divine Lord? If you say it's a late-stage Lesser Empyrean, or a middle-rank Empyrean, your father will believe it. Is he really a human? Is he really that talented? I wonder how the great Devis managed to dig it out. They were all stunned. Whether they were middle heavenly venerates or upper heavenly venerates, even the sky celestials, they were all deeply shocked. They didn't know what to say in such a crazy situation. Was there really no way to stop his attack? If this continued, Tianyan would be able to win 3 rounds in a row and win this round. More importantly, it was so easy. Who could stop him? Is this really a Divine Lord cultivation level? The faces of the first elder and the others twitched. They had the urge to check Tianyan's cultivation level again. But they had checked before. 7th level Divine Lord. The truth was right in front of them. There was no way to hide it. Even a good concealment treasure would not be able to keep its effects after contact. Especially since they were all sky celestials. If he could even hide from a sky celestial, then Tianyan had to be a sky celestial first. But they would never believe that Tianyan was a sky celestial, because he was constantly releasing a Divine Lord aura. How could he be a sky celestial? Moreover, as a sky celestial, why would he play such tricks? Wasn't this too insulting to the status of a sky celestial? Last one. Yi Tianyan gestured for the last one to come up. As long as he defeated the last one, then everything would be over. At this moment, the first elder and the others had solemn expressions. They really had to be careful. If this continued, they would lose for sure. They couldn't possibly continue to compete with the middle-level heavenly venerables, right? If that was really the case, they wouldn't even want their face anymore. Although they were shameless enough now, if they changed, that would be too much. Alright, last round. The first elder came to the lower-level heavenly venerable's side. He went up to one of the late-stage heavenly venerables and whispered something to him. The other party nodded and didn't say anything. Then the lower-level heavenly venerables came up to the arena. They still looked very young. They were indeed the elites of the elites. They had all been specially nurtured and hadn't cultivated for too long. Therefore they were all so young. This proved that their talent was indeed not bad. The power of the void, astonishing speed, explosive power. I really couldn't tell that this was the cultivation of a divine lord. Heavenly Venerate Yihua looked at him with a burning gaze and said, "But it's about time. Everything will end here. Do you all like to boast so much?" Yi Tianyan smiled faintly and said, "Each of you is better at boasting than the other. You don't have any ability at all. All you can do is boast. Whether I'm boasting or not, you'll know in a while." The corners of Heavenly Venerate Yihua's mouth curled up into a cold smile. This time he didn't take the initiative to attack. Instead, he stretched out his hand and said, "Come, I'll let you take the initiative to attack. Let's see whether your speed is faster or mine." Yi Tianyan looked at him from head to toe and said with a smile, "Oh, you seem to be quite capable. Little junior brother, don't take the initiative to attack. This guy uses flames. Moreover, it's a relatively strong hellfire. Not only can it burn through the void, but it can also protect itself." Heavenly Venerate Sword Judge immediately saw through it and pointed out the problem. "Thank you, senior brother, for the reminder." Yi Tianyan turned to look at Heavenly Venerate Yihua and said with a smile, "It seems that you really have some skill. Why don't you dare to come?" Heavenly Venerate Yihua provoked. "If you don't dare to come, then you're a coward. Where's that domineering aura from before? Was it all fake?" Heavenly Venerate Yihua used the lowest form of provocation to make Yi Tianyan angry and attack him, so that Yi Tianyan would take the initiative to attack. Chapter 1456. Heavenly Venerate Yihua was taken aback by Yi Tianyan's words. Wasn't this implying that he was asking for a beating? He was immediately enraged, and he sneered. "I'm asking for a beating, right? Come on then. Hit my face if you have the ability. Let's see if you have the ability." He pointed at his face, indicating for Yi Tianyan to hit him. Then he patted his face lightly and said with a despicable smile, "Come on, come and hit me. Idiot fool, hit me this way." A Heavenly Venerate being so despicable made the people around him dumbfounded. Previously, Heavenly Venerate Giant Sword had said that he wanted to cut off Yi Tianyan's tongue, but the people around him didn't say anything. After all, it wasn't a big deal to say such things when he was enraged. Anyway, as long as he didn't kill Yi Tianyan, it wasn't against the rules. The elders turned a blind eye to the matter and did not say anything. Now a Heavenly Venerate actually said such things. It was really despicable. Pa! Suddenly, a figure rushed over and slapped Heavenly Venerate Yihua hard, sending him flying. He rolled on the ground a few times and almost rolled out of the arena. His face was slapped high, and several of his teeth were knocked out. I've never seen such a despicable person. You actually want others to hit your face. I'll do as you wish. Yi Tianyan waved his hand and said indifferently, "I have to say that your skin is really thick. It's many times stronger than that dragon scale defense." Fast, it was really too fast. Most people didn't know what had happened, but Yi Tianyan had already sent Heavenly Venerate Yihua flying. Only those with higher cultivation and above Heavenly Venerates could see the speed at which Yi Tianyan rushed over. They were all shocked by this speed. It was really too fast, so fast that they couldn't believe it. because this speed was already equivalent to their speed. The speed of a god lord was actually almost as fast as them. Even if it wasn't as fast, the difference wouldn't be too great. Under such circumstances, what was the point of fighting? Not to mention the power of an upper Empyrean. With the speed of an upper Empyrean, how could a lower Empyrean play? There were quite a few realms that he had to cross. Just its speed alone was enough to kill everything in an instant. After all, only speed was unbeatable in all the martial arts in the world. How did you get here? Celestial Venerable Yihua was shocked. He had already prepared himself, so how did he get sucked out in an instant? He couldn't react at all. You don't need to know how I got here. Didn't you want me to slap you just now? Now that I've done what you wanted, I've slapped you hard in the face. Tianyan said indifferently. If it's not enough, how about I give you another slap? He controlled his strength very well and almost sent Celestial Venerable Yihua flying. It was just the right amount of strength. If he wanted to, that slap would have given him victory. As long as he sent Heavenly Venerate Hellfire flying, he would win. However, he didn't do that. It wasn't easy to deal with such a person. He had to play with him. Celestial Venerable Yihua was enraged. He quickly bounced up and glared at him. Again. Try slapping me again if you can. Since you want to be cheap, no problem. Tianyan rushed over, and an afterimage appeared in midair. The moment he rushed over, Celestial Venerable Yihua clapped his hands. Terrifying hellfire swept out in all directions, forming an extreme wall of fire that rose high into the sky. Everything that came into contact with it immediately turned into nothingness. He locked himself in almost all directions to protect his position. At the same time, he clapped his hands, and countless fire dragons whizzed in all directions, smashing down on the area where Tianyan was pouncing over. Boom, boom, boom. Countless fire dragons smashed down continuously. The floor of the hall shook, but it wasn't damaged. The restrictions here had been reinforced. It was very difficult for Celestial Venerable Yihua to destroy them. Unless a sky god attacked fiercely, it would take a long time to destroy them. Die. Celestial Venerable Yihua's eyes were red. Even if Tianyan died, it had nothing to do with him, and he wouldn't be punished. After all, based on the current situation, it could only be considered an explosive mistake. He couldn't not use his full strength, right? Once he used his full strength, the result would be hard to say. The Great Elder had already said that fists and feet had no eyes. There would be times when one would miss. What he was playing now was miss. Who do you want to die? A ghostly voice came from behind Celestial Venerable Yihua, which made his heart go cold. The next moment he quickly turned around and waved his hand, sweeping the flames over. But how could his speed compare to Tianyun's? Pa! A heavy slap landed on his face once again, sending him flying out. He didn't roll out of the arena after this slap. Instead, he rolled a few times on the ground before quickly bouncing up with his hands on his face. His face was swollen. Previously it was on the left side, but now it was on the right. Both sides were swollen, making him look like a big fatty. But no one could laugh at this scene. They only felt that it was extremely strange. Celestial Venerable Yihua had clearly built a wall of fire, and if he wanted to enter, he would have to pass through it. As for entering the void, it was useless. This level of Yihua could even burn the void, which meant that hiding inside was useless. But now Tianyan didn't leave any traces. He easily arrived beside Celestial Venerable Yihua, and gave him a vicious slap. This slap didn't have much lethality. It was just a simple slap to the face. But this already proved many things. If Tianyan wanted to defeat him, he could do it in an instant. But he hadn't done so. Instead, he was playing around with Celestial Venerable Yihua, and slapping his face. I've already slapped you once. Do you want another slap? Tianyan walked over step by step, his palm swaying slightly. He was ready to slap him again at any time. Celestial Venerable Yihua was like a kitten whose tail had been stepped on. He quickly bounced up from the ground and stared at Tianyan, as if he had seen a ghost. How did you get behind me? Did you pass through the void? With your speed, do you think I need to pass through the void? Tianyan mocked. The other Grand Elders and the others fell silent. They had all seen what had happened in that instant. Etienne's speed was too fast. He had appeared behind Celestial Venerable Yihua at an astonishing speed. To put it bluntly, Etienne had already appeared behind Celestial Venerable Yihua the moment he used his flames. What was the use of just using flames? Chapter 1457. Heavenly Venerate Yihua was destined to lose, and he would lose completely. He wouldn't even have a chance to resist. Heavenly Venerate Yihua wanted to surrender. If this continued, he would only continue to be humiliated. He might as well surrender. He already knew how big the gap between him and Etienne was. It was like a chasm. He couldn't even see Etienne's figure. How could he fight? He was very confident in his attacks. However, no matter how confident he was, it was meaningless if he couldn't hit Etienne. I surrender, slap. Etienne rushed over and slapped him, sending Heavenly Venerate Yihua flying. He rolled a few times and lost a few teeth. Didn't you want me to slap you? Try slapping me again. Etienne interrupted him with a slap. He knew that Heavenly Venerate Yihua wanted to surrender, but he wasn't willing. How could he stop if he didn't slap him a few more times? These fellows had such a cheap mouth. He wouldn't know where he was wrong if he didn't slap him a few more times. Surrender, surrender. I'll give you another slap. Slap. Etienne slapped him again. Heavenly Venerate Yihua rolled a few times and lay flat on the ground. Does it feel good? I'll continue to slap you. Let's see how thick your skin is. Etienne wanted to rush over and slap him again. Enough. At this time, a wave of air came from the side and pushed him to the side. He only stopped after taking a few steps back. Etienne looked up and saw that the one who had attacked was naturally the Grand Elder. He finally couldn't help but shout for a stop. If this went on, it would be really embarrassing for everyone to see Heavenly Venerate Yihua's face swollen. It was already embarrassing enough now. It would be even more embarrassing when the time came. It was basically a one-sided suppression now. There was no way for him to turn the tables. The elders were all discerning people and could see the gap. Especially from the speed. They knew that Heavenly Venerate Yihua would definitely lose. They thought that Etienne's speed was already his limit. Who knew that he could increase it again? The result of this situation was that Heavenly Venerate Yihua was easily abused. Now they didn't even need Heavenly Venerate Yihua to surrender. Was Heavenly Venerate Yihua? But the truth was in front of them. They could only admit that the Great Devasa's disciple was stronger. Surrender? Etienne smiled faintly. This means that we won. Won. Yes, you won. No matter how tough the Great Elder's neck was, he could only nod and admit defeat. Yihua Yi Venerate didn't want to lose. To venerate Yi Tian Venerate Yi God Venerate Heavenly Venerable Sword C, and the rest were incomparably excited. They finally won and weren't defeated by these shameless people. Tian heaves them to well. A heavenly to Yihua Venerate. Well. As they Yi Lord. Yi Tian Venerate to say anything. Well. Venerable as well as venerate as Heavenly Ven. A Tian Venerate. At the same time, they were terrified. Thinking about it, Etienne was already so heaven-defying as a divine lord. What if he broke through to Heavenly Venerate? Wouldn't he be able to sweep away Heavenly Venerate level powerhouses? How did this guy cultivate? How can a divine lord have such power? That's right. Did he cheat? But how did he cheat? So many people were watching. If he cheated, they would have seen through it long ago. Anyway, I can't see that he cheated. That speed can't be considered cheating. His speed is too shocking. As long as he's fast enough, he can win. That's right. He's not that strong. He's even weaker than Heavenly Venerate Yihua. But his speed is too fast. I can't see it clearly. That's too shameless. If we were comparing strength, we definitely wouldn't have lost. This guy has a huge advantage. He won by relying on speed. Etienne won, but there were still people who didn't recognize his strength. They thought that he won by relying on speed. If he didn't rely on speed and only relied on normal strength, he definitely wouldn't have been able to win. You bunch of idiots. You're telling us that you're geniuses. Winner takes all. No matter what method you use, as long as you can win, you're the winner. Saying that our little junior brother only relies on speed? If you have the ability, come and compete with a speed powerhouse? What a joke. If you had a speed powerhouse come and win against our little junior brother, you would definitely be fine. Heavenly Venerate Sword Lord immediately started scolding. Among the many senior brothers, his mouth was the fiercest. But thinking about it, he specialized in collecting information. This meant that he definitely had different thoughts. However, such a loud scolding in the main hall had really made them sick to their stomachs. Everyone's face turned ugly. Some of them immediately started retorting. It's obvious that he's just a little faster. If he's sealed in this area, can speed still be effective? We're not convinced. That's right. We're not convinced. If you have the ability, fight fair and square. Don't play tricks. If we send a defense-type powerhouse, no matter how fast you are, you won't be able to win without strength. Each and every one of them hooted even more fiercely, feeling like they turned into bickering mode all of a sudden, starting scolding each other. The numerous elders exchanged a glance. But head elder among them did not shout for them to stop, letting them shout freely. This meant that this head elder similarly felt that it was not too fair. Just as Heavenly Venerate Sword Lord and the rest were about to continue scolding back, Tianyan stepped forward at this time and said indifferently, "Since that's the case, then I'll give a 1-for-1 free. You guys send another person up and use your way to compete." His eyes were filled with rage, feeling that this group of guys was really enough. They still wanted a yard after taking an inch, clearly relying on the fact that there were more people over there, feeling unconvinced? If you're not convinced, then I'll beat them until they're convinced. Cough cough, fourth elder, this is what your disciple said. I didn't force him. Since that's the case, in order to make everyone convinced, continue to send a powerhouse up. How about it? Head elder smiled slightly and said, "The final outcome will be decided by this." Thick-Skin probably could not even describe these guys anymore. When Tianyan saw these guys, he was simply disgusted to the point of exploding. Let him join this heaven cultivation god realm, but he was too lazy to even join. No wonder the great Devis chose to leave in the end. Meeting this group of guys, how could he want to stay here? If my disciple is willing, then there's no problem. The great Devis did not say anything and chose to agree with Tianyan's words. Since Tianyan felt that there was no problem, then there was no problem. Tianyan, give them a good beating, don't be courteous with master. At this time, the great Devis transmitted his voice to Tianyan. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.